Chapter 659. Supremacy I Ching. I really need these spirit herbs. Can you? Tian, who was begging like he was on his deathbed, stared blankly, his eyes widened in disbelief. You agree? As for the specific spirit stones you tell Nyo, tell him. He pointed at Lone Moon beside him, then picked up the empty plate of snacks on the table, turned and went back to the kitchen to wash the dishes. Good. Tian looked like he had won a big prize, nodding repeatedly, his mind filled with the joy of getting rare and high-level spirit herbs. Even his eyes were shining when he looked at Lone Moon. Supremacy Tian, why don't we go directly to the spirit herb field at the foot of the mountain, talk as we walk? He took 2 steps forward and made a forward gesture. That's great. Tian naturally wanted to return to the foot of the mountain faster than anyone else. He was even more courteous to Lone Moon. Thank you, brother. He did not forget that he was the one who spoke up for him. That sword cultivator called I Ching only agreed. It was clear that he was not a small person in I Ching's heart. Although he was only a foundation establishment cultivator, he had to be on good terms with him. Supremacy is too polite. Lone Moon immediately returned a bow, directly turning sideways to lead the way. Supremacy, this way please. So the two walked all the way down the mountain. For a moment, the entire courtyard was only left with Shening, who was sprawled on the dining table like mud, chewing on a fruit, and a certain 2-buck Zwa who was beaten half to death and had yet to catch his breath. Zwa Shuming silently looked in the direction where Lone Moon disappeared. His blank mind finally returned to his senses. Is brother Lone Moon going out for something? That's great. He could finally rest for a while. At least he did not have to be beaten up for an entire day. He instantly had the urge to cry. It was great to be alive. Instantly, his whole body relaxed. He let out a long sigh, but before he could finish, a figure flashed in front of him. An even bigger sword body came over. Supremacy I Ching suddenly appeared beside him, glanced at him, then turned to pull out the spirit sword on the ground. No. Lone Moon instructed me to be your sparring partner in the afternoon. Get up, draw your sword. Zwa Shuming. Are you guys demons? As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura rushed over and directly sent him flying. In the blink of an eye, his entire body seemed to have been blown away by the wind, and he began to repeatedly roll on the ground. Little brother, I wonder what your supremacy likes? Taking the opportunity to go down the mountain, Tian could not help but ask Lone Moon about I Ching. Perhaps if they could form a good relationship, they would be able to continue buying spirit herbs in the future. Lone Moon's eyes shifted. He thought for a moment before replying, Supremacy actually, for someone with a cultivation like my supremacies and a sword cultivator at that, there aren't many things in the world that can interest him. Tian frowned. This was a little troublesome. But, speaking of hobbies, I do have one. Lone Moon's tone changed. Seeing that the other party's face lit up, he said, my supremacy is more special. He doesn't like anything else but spirit stones. What a special hobby. Who doesn't like spirit stones? However, loving spirit stones was good as well. As a level 9 alchemist, what he lacked the least was spirit stones. In other words, as long as he could afford it, he could still come here to buy spirit herbs in the future. Tianyi's heart instantly settled. Even the way he looked at Lone Moon became more friendly. Thinking of something, he directly took out a level 3 supreme-grade Dharma artifact and handed it over. Thank you for your advice, little friend. This spirit sword of mine is just right for you to use. I forgot to accept it. Lone Moon glanced at the level 3 Dharma artifact but did not accept it. Instead, he asked directly, can this be exchanged for spirit stones? Tian. Were all the people taught by sword cultivators like this? The corner of his mouth twitched. He could only turn his hand and take out a small bag of spirit stones. Thank you, Supremacy. Lone Moon accepted it very bluntly. A moment later, as if thinking of something, he lowered his voice and pretended to be mysterious. Supremacy, to be honest, my supremacy doesn't actually know alchemy. It's a waste to leave all these spirit herbs on the mountain. It's just that you're unlucky. Coincidentally, my supremacy is in a bad mood today. That's why he was unwilling to sell them previously. If you sincerely sell them after 2 days when he's in a better mood, I can help to persuade him. By then, if you need the spirit herbs in this mountain, as long as you have spirit stones, anything can be negotiated. Tian was instantly overjoyed. He grabbed his hand and said, little friend, are you serious? Of course. That's great. He was so excited that his entire body trembled. He had thought that it was good enough to get 3 stalks. He did not expect that he still had a chance. He looked at Lone Moon's sparkling eyes. He looked like he wanted to immediately become sworn brothers with him. If it's really possible, I will not hesitate to help you if you need anything in the future. Well said, well said. Lone Moon's smile became more and more amiable. His brows formed a line. Come, let's talk about the price first. I'll have to trouble you with everything, little friend. 2 hours later. Tian-Yi carefully carried the 3 high-level spirit herbs. He hung an empty storage bag and returned to Danxia Mountain with a smile as if he had won the lottery. Once he entered the house, he instructed the personal disciple beside him. Quick, go to the alchemy room to prepare. I want to start refining the nascent soul pill immediately. Nascent soul pill. That disciple was also shocked. Master, you found the purple cloud Lingji. It's not just the purple cloud Lingji. Tian-Yi smiled so much that his mouth was crooked. Go quickly, go quickly. This spirit herb has just been taken out. Don't delay the time. Yes. The disciple nodded hurriedly and was about to go prepare. Tian-Yi seemed to have thought of something again. Hold on, go and inform the Heaven Expanse sect that they ordered 3 nascent formation elixirs from me 3 years ago. Ask them to bring their spirit stones to collect the elixirs in half a month. There were at least 10 elixirs in 1 cauldron. The disciple nodded. Also, Tian-Yi thought about it and instructed solemnly. The deposit that Heaven Yen sect gave previously, send it all to the floating peak above and hand it over to a little friend called Lone Moon. Remember, the amount cannot be wrong, understand? Yes, master. The disciple then walked out. He had already agreed with little friend Lone Moon that he would help him negotiate with that supremacy I Ching and let him sell the spirit herb to him. He helped him so enthusiastically. As a soul formation cultivator, he naturally could not take advantage of his little disciple's favor. Originally, he was still thinking about how to repay him. He did not expect him to take the initiative to suggest that he only need to give him 30% of the profits from the elixirs he refined using the spirit herb. At the thought of this, Tian-Yi could not help but sigh. A disciple who had just reached foundation establishment did not ask for cultivation techniques or dharma artifacts. He only asked for some spirit stones as a token of goodwill. He must have said so because he was afraid that he would be put in a difficult position. What a good person. He really did not misjudge him. Supremacy Tian-Yi, who regarded spirit stones as dirt and only focused on refining elixirs, expressed that even if the other party's cultivation was low, he would definitely befriend him. Whoever bullied him in the future would be going against him, Tian-Yi. At the top of the highest floating peak. Achoo. Lone Moon, who had easily earned a large sum of money, rubbed his nose and faintly felt a chill on his back. Who was talking about him? Father Nyo, the funds for supper. Xining confidently reached out her claw to bite him. Got it? When have I ever been short of you? Lone Moon then took out a bag of spirit stones and handed it over. He looked around. Where's Chef? Went out to buy groceries. Xining stuffed the spirit stones into the bag. Lone Moon nodded. Just as he was about to enter the house, he suddenly felt that something was missing. He looked at the yard again and remembered. Then where's 2 bucks swa? It's hanging there. Xining pointed. Hanging? Lone Moon subconsciously looked over. On the big tree opposite, a piece of human-shaped cured meat was hanging on a high branch, swaying against the wind. The person's eyes had already turned white and he had completely fainted. And the entire tree, starting from the roots at the bottom, was filled with densely packed spirit swords. The topmost one was even tightly stuck to 2 bucks' buttocks. It seemed that if it was an inch off, he would not be hanging on the tree but nailed to the tree. Lone Moon, what happened to sparring? How was this sparring? This was obviously a one-sided beating, right? Chapter 660. Ever since Chef joined Guiyi sect, the 3 of them lived on the tallest floating peak. Their daily mission was to to teach 2 bucks with sword techniques. Lone Moon originally wanted to set up a sword array like before and let him figure it out himself. But 2 bucks' foundation was really too poor, plus he only started cultivating the sword after foundation establishment and just happened to be in the late stages of foundation establishment. If he was directly thrown into the sword array, he would probably die on the first level. So Lone Moon had to do it himself. Although 2 bucks was not qualified, he was still considered diligent, even if he was beaten half to death every day. The next day he still came up with a sword bitterly. A few years had passed, although his sword techniques were still very touching, but fortunately his resistance to beatings had improved a lot. He already had the constitution of a sword cultivator who could not be beaten to death. Lone Moon was still a little relieved despite his disdain. And although 2 bucks' cultivation did not improve much these few years, the spirit chi in his body was more condensed. He just lacked an opportunity to form his core. Guiyi sect master Yuan also seemed to see that I Ching did not like to be disturbed by others, other than coming over from time to ask if I Ching needed to recruit a few more disciples into the peak. He did not mention it again after being rejected. Of course, it could also be because there were really no other sword cultivator disciples in the sect. Only Tian Yi from Danxia Mountain still came up to find Lone Moon reluctantly. The more they chatted, the more they got along, especially Tian Yi. Every time he would look like he wanted to become sworn brothers with Lone Moon, calling him Brother Lone Moon. Although he would be cheated of a sum of spirit stones every time, he still enjoyed it. Shu Yi, on the other hand, was quiet. It was said that he went into seclusion after becoming Tianji's disciple. As for Tianji, perhaps because he was embarrassed that day, he unexpectedly became low-key. The two did not leave Danxia Mountain again. Even the system's small radio station rarely broadcast. Just when they thought that they still had to live a long time of eating, sleeping, fighting and occasionally eating more to cheat Tianyi, Yuan suddenly came to find them with a serious expression. Fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi? I Ching frowned. That's right. Yuan nodded and said anxiously, 500 years ago his frigid dark fire once destroyed the entire Huangyu sect. None of the 3,000 disciples of Huangyu sect escaped. Now that he has appeared again, I'm afraid he's going to cause trouble again. Sect Master, how can you be sure that the person who appeared in Yuanyang City is this person? Lone Moon could not help but ask. Of course. Yuan took a look at him and sighed. That deviant flame that appeared in the forest outside Yuanyang City is exactly the same as the one that appeared when Imperial Universe Sect was annihilated back then. Moreover, 3 days ago the Peak Lord of Danjin Peak Taoist Master Yuzi just happened to pass by there, so he sent a message saying that he was going to investigate, but he never came back. His brows furrowed even deeper, his face full of worry. What about his life token? The life tablet didn't break. Yuan replied, it's just that his soul lamp is extremely weak, I'm afraid. He didn't continue, but it was obvious that the other party had met with quite a bit of trouble and probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. So you hope that Supremacy I Ching can go and take a look? Lone Moon corrected himself. Yuan nodded and said anxiously and worriedly, Uncle Master I Ching, that fiendish cultivator's whereabouts are unfathomable. 500 years ago, all the sects worked together to find no trace of him. At that time he had just formed his nascent soul, but now we don't know what his cultivation is. Now in our sect, Uncle Master Tianji is in seclusion, and Uncle Master Tianyi is at a critical moment of pill refinement. He can't be interrupted. I can only be bold enough to ask you to come out of seclusion. He stood up and bowed solemnly, then added, that Zhongyi suddenly appeared within the boundaries of my Guiyi sect. He must be plotting something. Now that perfected Yuzi's whereabouts are unknown, I have no choice but to. Chef turned back to look at Lone Moon, then answered, it's not difficult for me to make a trip there, but how am I going to find that perfected Yuzi? He didn't know him. Yuan's expression lit up. This is junior brother Yuzi's life token. There's a drop of his blood essence on it. As long as you reach Yuanyang City, within a radius of 100 miles, you can sense his location. He took out a jade token and said, Uncle Master I Ching only needs this life token to definitely be able to. Before he could finish, he suddenly heard a cracking sound. The life token in his hand instantly broke into two. A wisp of death chi floated out faintly. Yuan's expression instantly turned pale, his body unsteady as he sat back down, his face full of sorrow. He sighed. Looks like I'm still a step too late. The life token breaking proved that the other party had already died. Lone Moon and I Ching were also silent. They didn't expect this to happen. That Yuanyang City, I'll go take a look. I Ching replied. The person he was looking for had died, but the matter of the fiendish cultivator was still unresolved. After all, they were now considered part of Guiyi sect. It was reasonable for them to go take a look. Thank you, Uncle Master. Yuan nodded with a bitter smile. He suddenly thought of something and said, but there's no hurry now. Wait for me to take inventory of some disciples and follow Uncle Master. I Ching frowned. I can go alone, there's no need for others. If there really were fiendish cultivators, they would also be a burden. Uncle Master has misunderstood. Yuan hurriedly explained, many of the people in Yuanyang City were injured by that deviant fire and infected with evil qi. Yuanyang City is an immortal city under my Guiyi sect. My sect cannot sit back and do nothing, so I intend to send a batch of disciples over to help them get rid of the evil qi. This journey is dangerous, so I'd like to ask Uncle Master to escort them. So that was the case. I Ching nodded. All right. Then thank you, Uncle Master. Yulwan cupped his fists again as if he didn't expect the other party to be so easy to talk to. Then I'll inform the various peaks to do a head count, we'll set off tomorrow morning. With that said, he didn't stay any longer, he turned and flew away with a solemn expression. Yulwan's speed was very fast, perhaps because this matter was indeed very urgent. The second day at dawn, a disciple came to inform them that they were about to set off. Thinking that this was a good chance to train, so Lone Moon brought 2 bucks along. The moment they arrived at the main peak where they gathered, they saw a large group of disciples gathered in front of the hall from afar, roughly 40 to 50 of them. Most of them were Golden Core and Foundation Establishment disciples. There was even a nascent soul cultivator leading them. He even looked a little familiar, it was Danshin Peak Lord Shu Yuan. Lone Moon turned to look, indeed Shu Yi was there too. Greetings Uncle Master I Ching. Shu Yuan cupped his fists respectfully and bowed. The other disciples also bowed. Greetings Grand Uncle Master. I Ching nodded, he didn't dawdle and directly followed everyone onto the spirit ship, heading towards Yuanyang City. Yuanyang City wasn't far from Guiyi sect, but with so many people on the spirit ship, it would take about 2 hours. Lone Moon subconsciously glanced at the invader. Indeed he discovered that her gaze still swept past Wuxia from time to time, her expression extremely complicated, as if she was looking at him with disdain and some resentment. He didn't know what she was thinking about, she didn't turn on the broadcast, for a moment he couldn't guess her motive. Is this fellow Taoist? Lone Moon? Suddenly a disciple walked over from the side, his attitude was very respectful as he bowed towards Lone Moon. The other party was dressed in a blue disciple robe, there were special patterns on the sleeves, looks like he was an advanced disciple of each peak. Lone Moon nodded. The senior brother is? The other party's expression lit up, he immediately introduced himself. I am Danxia Peak disciple Qinlin. I'm here on Master's orders to bring something for fellow Taoist Lone Moon. Lone Moon was stunned. Danxia Peak? Tiani. Chapter 661. Master knew that fellow Taoist Lone Moon was going to Yuanyang City. Just in case, he prepared some useful items for you. As he spoke, he opened his storage bag and took out a bunch of bottles. This is a blood-clotting pill, this is a spirit-returning pill, this is a qi condensation pill, this is a poison-resisting pill. He stuffed everything over and finally looked around, handing over an especially small and exquisite bottle. He lowered his voice and said mysteriously, this is a 9th grade 9 revolution soul-returning pill. Master said he only has 1 left, as long as he still has 1 breath left. Eating this pill can save him, fellow Taoist must keep it well. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining. Suddenly 2 pairs of suspicious squinted eyes were fixed on Lone Moon. Oh, shut up. Lone Moon turned back and glared at the 2. I didn't do anything, alright? *2, your sister. What's with that look that says I'm a kept woman? Get rid of that ambiguous wavy line. Don't think too much. How would he know what was wrong with old man Tianyi, suddenly sending people to give him so many pills? He was just a proper businessman, bluffing according to procedures, who knew that old man Tianyi really believed him. He suddenly felt a little guilty. What's going on? Fellow Taoist Lone Moon? Seeing that he didn't speak for a long time, Qinlin couldn't help but remind him. His eyes were full of envy. This was a 9 revolution soul returning pill. Master didn't even give it to him. It was clear that this person had a close relationship with Master. Thank you, senior brother. Lone Moon's mouth twitched, then he took it. Fellow Taoist is too polite. Qinlin hurriedly waved his hand. Fellow Taoist and my master are of the same generation. I really don't deserve to be called senior brother. Hee. If there's nothing else, fellow Taoist, I'll take my leave first. Glancing at the pills in his hand, he reminded, please keep these pills well, fellow Taoist. With that said, he turned and left. Lone Moon. He had cheated many people, but this was the first time he saw someone who liked to be cheated so much, he couldn't bear it. Forget it, next time he buys spirit herbs I'll give him a 9% discount. Here. He turned his hand and shoved these elixirs to 2 bucks beside him. Zhusheng faltered. He hurriedly caught it so that it did not fall to the ground. Lone Moon, this is. Take it. Put it away. Although these things were useless to him, to a true Foundation establishment cultivator like 2 bucks, they were really effective. Moreover, all kinds of elixirs were prepared. But Supremacy Tiani gave it to you. I told you to take it, so take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Don't you know who's the weakest here? Why did it feel like Brother Lone Moon's mood had suddenly turned sour, and why did he feel like he was being looked down upon? After thinking about it, Zhushuming could only silently keep it in his storage bag. Forget it, at most he would keep it for Brother Lone Moon first. When he needed it he would return it to him. Perhaps it was because the situation was really urgent. The journey that was supposed to take 2 hours, they had already reached Yuanyang City half an hour earlier. From afar they could see that the entire immortal city was covered in a gray evil aura. And wisps of icy cold chi were surging over from the east of the city. The entire immortal city did not have many people either. It seemed rather deserted. Xu Yuan, who was leading the team, frowned. He got off the boat first and immediately activated the immortal city's protective barrier. In the next instant the array formation in the city lit up. A layer of transparent barrier rose up and protected the entire immortal city within it. The icy cold chi that kept surging over was also isolated outside. When everyone got off there were already 7 to 8 cultivators waiting in the middle of the city. Perfected Xu Yuan. The one at the front was the city lord. When he saw everyone, his face lit up and he immediately came forward to welcome them. He saw I Ching at the side and was stunned. This is Supremacy I Ching. Xu Yuan introduced. Supremacy. The other party was shocked and hurriedly bowed again. City Lord Yuan, how's the situation in the city now? Xu Yuan hurriedly asked. The other party then answered, replying perfected, most of the people in the city who were invaded by the evil chi are ordinary mortals. There are a total of more than 1,000 people. There are also some righteous cultivators who accidentally entered the forest. Especially yesterday, there was a group of cultivators who happened to be coming from the border city. They passed by the forest and were even injured by the deviant fire. I'm afraid they won't be able to hold on for long. You mean that the deviant fire hasn't been extinguished? Xu Yuan was shocked. Indeed not. The city lord's face was also full of worry. His brows furrowed even deeper. Yuanyang City was an immortal city under Guiyi City. Most of the people doing business in the city were outer sect disciples of Guiyi sect. The people in the city had naturally been protected by Guiyi sect. Listening to the city lord's description, it seemed that the matter this time was more serious than imagined. This time the sect has sent 40 disciples over. Quickly bring them to remove the evil chi for the injured people in the city. Yes, perfected one. The city lord hurriedly responded. Xu Yuan turned back and gave a few instructions to the crowd, asking them to definitely not leave the city. Only then did he let everyone disperse with the city lord to see the injured people. With that said, he turned to look at I Ching beside him. Supremacy, what do you think? I'll go take a look at the place where the deviant fire is. You stay here. With that said, I Ching did not waste any more time. He exchanged a look with Lone Moon and directly flew up on his sword. He brought Shining and headed towards the direction where the cold chi was surging from the east. Almost at the instant they left the city, they felt a wave of cold chi coming towards them. The further east they went into the forest, the heavier the cold chi became. It even faintly carried a chill that seemed to invade one's soul. After flying for less than a while, there was a burning smell in the air. From afar they could see a patch of charred black in front of them. They could also faintly see traces of white flames spreading outwards. That flame was extremely special. It was different from all other flames. It had no temperature at all. It even carried a chill. It was more like ice than fire. But wherever it passed it could burn everything. This was, I Ching was shocked and subconsciously exclaimed. Dark fire. Asterisk 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 asterisk. At the same time in Yuanyang City, a disciple who was planning to help a cultivator who was burnt by the deviant fire had just transmitted a trace of spirit chi into the other party. Instantly, a white flame shot out from the other party's body. The disciple screamed. It was already too late to retreat. Instantly, his entire arm was surrounded by flames. This junior brother, Zhushuming, who happened to be at the side, was shocked. He subconsciously wanted to pull the person away. Lone Moon reacted quickly. He pulled the person back. Then he took a step forward and pressed down on the other party's burning right hand. He activated his god power and swept over. Only then did that white flame extinguish. His expression darkened instantly. Why would dark fire appear in the mortal realm? Chapter 662. What's going on? Xu Yuan noticed the commotion and walked in quickly. He looked at the patient on the bed whose breathing was getting weaker, then looked at the disciple who was already sitting on the ground in fear. What happened? Uncle Master Xu Yuan? The disciple paused for a moment, then came back to his senses and answered with some fear. Fire. The fire on this person's body is contagious. The moment I activated my spirit chi, the fire spread to my body. What? Xu Yuan was shocked. His expression darkened as he thought of something. He immediately turned to the disciple beside him and said, "Quick! Tell those disciples who are treating the burned people to stop." Yes. The disciple quickly ran out to inform them. Unfortunately, he was still one step too late. A total of 17 people were burned by the residual fire in the forest. 6 of the disciples did not have time to treat them and were saved. The other disciples had already started treating them. Unfortunately, all of them were burned by the fire on their bodies and were seriously injured. Not only did they not save the people, but they also lost 10 disciples. Xu Yuan was so worried that his brows were knitted together. He did not expect that the people who were burned by the frigid dark fire would still have residual fire in their bodies and that it would even counterattack. One had to know that the people who were treating these people were all Golden Core disciples. They were considered the backbone of the sect. Now that 10 of them had died, how could he not be heartbroken? At this moment, his intestines were green with regret. Yet he did not know how to treat them. Lonman's face darkened. The so-called icy dark fire was actually dark fire. It came from the underworld, a deviant fire that attracted dead souls. This kind of fire was extremely cold and could directly burn souls. Not to mention these cultivators from the lower world, even immortals from the upper world would not be able to withstand it. But how did this fire come to the mortal world and how did it get caught by a fiendish cultivator? Just as he was thinking, a familiar broadcast sounded beside him. Ding. Analysis complete. High-energy residue body. Host, this is something from another region of this plane. It can burn everything, even souls. That fire is so powerful. Shui was shocked. It's an deviant fire indeed. It's a pity that the host only encountered this little bit of heat. It's not even a flame. If only you could collect more of it. There's more than one person who was burned here. Shu Yi's eyes lit up. When the time comes, we just need to collect more from them. But even so, I can only gather a small amount of the flames. I still need to find the source of the fire before I can fully control it. Don't worry. As long as I have this flame, that person's deviant fire will no longer be able to hurt me. You won't be able to escape. Shu Yi's expression was one of determination. He hurt my master, so he has to pay the price. Besides, he's seriously injured now, and I have the magic tool that master gave me, so I shouldn't be able to run far. Lone Moon frowned. She was here for the fiendish cultivator, and from her tone, she seemed to have seen the fiendish cultivator before. But we can't leave the city. How are we going to find that person? They don't have an isolated space, so they won't be able to deal with this deviant flame in a short time. There's still a lot of time. Tonight, I'll quietly collect the residual fire from these people, then I'll find a chance to sneak out to look for them. Shu Yi's face was full of confidence. On the other hand, Xu Yuan's face was full of worry. He anxiously paced back and forth in front of the burned disciples. He wanted to help, but he couldn't. He could only look at the disciple beside him and ask, "Have you eaten the elixirs?" "I've already fed them," the disciple answered. "But the body-seeping elixir can only temporarily protect their primordial spirits from being burned by the flames in their bodies. It can't completely heal their injuries. What should we do?" Xu Yuan became even more anxious. Lone Moon glanced at the happy Shu Yi. He couldn't help but want to cause some trouble. He stepped forward and reminded, "Why don't we wait for Supremacy I Ching to come back and take a look?" He was only a Foundation Establishment disciple now. Naturally, he couldn't do anything directly. He could only wait for Chef. Xu Yuan was stunned. Then he remembered I Ching. His expression calmed down. That's right. Supremacy will definitely have a way. He heaved a sigh of relief. But he was still a little worried. After all, this was in deviant fire. There were no traces of the fiendish cultivator in the forest. Chef returned very quickly. Almost the moment he returned to the city, he was hurriedly pulled over by Xu Yuan. "Uncle Master I Ching, please take a look at these disciples. They can't hold on much longer." I Ching was stunned. He subconsciously turned to look at Lone Moon. Lone Moon directly transmitted 2 words. Dark fire. I Ching understood instantly. He entered the room and saw more than 10 people lying inside. Their bodies were charred black. It was as if something inside their bodies was constantly eating away at their bodies. Their expressions were extremely painful. "Uncle Master I Ching, they were deviant." Xu Yuan was about to explain. But I Ching directly turned his hand. Immediately, a large patch of glaring red flames appeared. It directly enveloped the 10 people in the room. With a series of crackling sounds, white flames seemed to rise from the disciples' bodies. Then they directly dissipated. He withdrew his hand. The fire in the room was instantly extinguished. It was as if it had never existed. Not even a strand of hair on the people in the room was burned. But their expressions were much more relaxed. Xu Yuan went forward to feel their pulse. Only then did he realize that the deviant fire in their bodies had already disappeared. Uncle Master. Xu Yuan was completely stunned. What was that fire just now? It could actually directly extinguish the dark fire. Uncle Master, you also have an deviant fire? The corner of Yi Qing's mouth twitched. He bit the bullet and nodded. Yes. What was an deviant fire? That was his true phoenix fire. That's great. Thank you, Uncle Master, for helping. Xu Yuan's heart relaxed. Not only because all the disciples were saved, but because Uncle Master Yi Qing's deviant fire could actually suppress the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi's dark fire. This way their Guiyi sect would not have to worry about Zhong Yi harming the sect. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Only Xu Yi's face darkened. What's going on? Why can he deal with that deviant fire? The heat in the target's body has completely disappeared. Perhaps because it encountered a higher energy heat, it was dispersed. Higher energy. Are you saying that the deviant fire in his body is stronger? She had not even started to collect it when it was dispersed. You can say that. Xu Yi's face turned green. So the opportunity that was right in front of her disappeared just like that. But there was nothing she could do. I wonder if Uncle Master has found any traces of Zhong Yi outside the city? Xu Yuan thought of serious business and turned to ask. No. Yi Qing shook his head. He is no longer in that forest. He only left behind some deviant fire that had not been completely burnt. I wonder what this fiendish cultivator is up to. He suddenly appeared near Guiyi sect and killed a nascent soul elder. Now he disappeared without a trace. Xu Yuan's frown deepened. He was getting more and more worried. He could only urge the disciples to speed up the treatment process so that they could return to the sect as soon as possible. After all, they were only Foundation Establishment and Golden Core disciples. If anything happened, they would not be able to stop it. Chapter 663. Nightfall. Lone Moon told the two of them what he had heard in the morning. That fiendish cultivator who can use the dark fire knows Tianji? Yi Qing paused. I'm afraid it's not just that. Lone Moon shook his head. From what the intruder said, the two of them had already fought. Tianji even seemed injured. The demonic qi on his body earlier must have something to do with this fiendish cultivator. So he appeared this time to seek revenge on Tianji? Chef frowned. If that's the case, why didn't he go straight to Guiyi sect? Why did he hide in this small city and even kill a nascent soul elder? Wasn't he trying to attract attention by creating so much hatred? Or did this fiendish cultivator really think he was invincible? Maybe he's not seeking revenge? Shining suddenly said. The two of them paused. What did she mean? If he's not seeking revenge, why is he doing this? Lone Moon blurted out. He came all the way to Guiyi sect's immortal city. Could he be fleeing? He paused halfway through his sentence. His eyes widened. You're not going to say that he didn't go to Guiyi sect to cause trouble, but escaped from Guiyi sect, are you? Shining took a bite of her fruit. Isn't it obvious? Holy shit. How was it obvious? He thought about the broadcast carefully and realized that it was really possible. Xu Yi seemed to have known about the dark fire from the start and wanted to collect it for her own use. Tianji even gave her a Dharma artifact specially used to deal with the fiendish cultivator. They were too well prepared. If that wasn't because they were very familiar with the fiendish cultivator, what was it? Initially he thought that it was because Tianji had fought with the fiendish cultivator. Now it seemed that it wasn't just that. Xu Yi's confident look clearly showed that she did not think much of the fiendish cultivator. A golden core cultivator was not afraid of a fiendish cultivator who was at least a nascent soul cultivator. That proved that she had absolute confidence that the fiendish cultivator would not be able to hurt her. Perhaps it wasn't just because of the system. In other words, the biggest possibility was that the fiendish cultivator was also seriously injured. This injury was obviously caused by Tianji. However, they had been in Guiyi sect for so long. However, he had never sensed a demonic cultivator barging in, let alone a deity transformation cultivator and a nascent soul cultivator. It was impossible for there to be no movement at all. All these years, Tianji had never left Guiyi sect. When did they fight? If it wasn't recently, it was definitely before they entered Guiyi sect. That would be interesting. They had been in Guiyi sect for a few years now. Zhong Yi had been seriously injured for so many years, but he had not recovered at all. Even a golden essence cultivator was not afraid of him. That was impossible. Unless someone was watching him at all times, not letting him recover. This person was none other than Tianji. In other words, Zhong Yi might have been in Guiyi sect from the start. He appeared in Yuanyang City, not to find trouble with Guiyi sect, but to escape from Guiyi sect. Why would Tianji capture a fiendish cultivator and hide him in the sect? Lone Moon did not understand. Was this man crazy? Fiendish cultivators and Dao cultivators have completely different systems. Furthermore, he's a soul formation cultivator. What could a nascent soul fiendish cultivator have that he covets? He stopped mid-sentence as he suddenly thought of something. It's the nether fire. He almost forgot that he was a core cultivator. Didn't he need the nether fire? No wonder Yu Luan and Tian Yi often complained about this soul formation uncle master. He was arrogant and did not care about anything in the sect. Not only did he not accept disciples, he did not even help to refine the pills in the sect. Only Tian Yi had a hard time refining pills every day. Now that he thought about it, it was not that he did not want to refine pills. It was because he had not completely refined the nether fire on the fiendish cultivator. That was why he could not refine pills and could not kill him. He did not accept disciples probably because he was afraid that others would find traces of the fiendish cultivator. The key was that he seemed to have failed. Not only did he escape, he almost became a fiendish cultivator. The more Lone Moon thought about it, the more embarrassed he felt. This invader really found a good backer that was similar to him? Almost as unlucky. The invader went out. I Ching suddenly said. Lone Moon was stunned. He immediately said, "Follow him." The three of them flashed and disappeared from the house in the next moment. They were about to follow Shu Yi's aura when they realized that the aura was suddenly cut off. The three of them lost their direction. Lone Moon's face darkened. He knew that it was the system's doing. How were they going to find her now? Just as they were thinking about whether to split up and look for her, an especially clear broadcast sounded in the sky above the silent immortal city. It immediately pointed the direction for the three of them. "Host, I have already shielded all your aura. No one can find you now." The three of them who had already found her, they had never seen such a cooperative invader. The three of them flew over. Indeed, they saw Shu Yi who was about to leave the city. The strange thing was that she was not heading towards the forest in the east where the nether fire appeared. Instead, she was heading in the opposite direction towards the west. She was holding something in her hand. From time to time, red light shone from it. It looked like a Dharma artifact that was used to find directions. She headed all the way to the west. After a while, she stopped in a dark and quiet place. She could faintly see undulating mounds of soil around her. This was a graveyard. "It's here. 001, scan this area." "Host, I did not expect to find any living beings. They should have been shielded. Master said that this demon, Zhong Yi, is best at array formations. He should be hiding." She scanned the graveyard in front of her. "He really knows how to hide. If not for Master's thoughtfulness and preparation of this tracking seal, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to find him." She laughed coldly and walked directly towards the graveyard. She even deliberately lightened her footsteps and stared at the direction indicated by the Dharma artifact in her hand. The three of them who were in the air exchanged a look. They directly used their divine perception to scan the area. Instantly they found that on the right side, there was a graveyard overgrown with weeds. There was a trace of the evil aura of a fiendish cultivator. They could faintly see a figure curled up in a coffin underground. Because it was a graveyard, the death aura and evil aura were mixed together and it was extremely difficult to distinguish. Yet it did not escape the three of them. Indeed, in a short while, Shu Yi had already turned and walked towards the right. She looked around and stopped in front of the most inconspicuous graveyard that was overgrown with weeds. Lone Moon was hesitating whether to make a move. Shu Yi, on the other hand, looked delighted. A strange light flashed in her eyes. Without hesitation, she took out a Dharma artifact and chanted a spell. She was about to activate the Dharma artifact and throw it out. Soon that deviant fire would be hers. Senior Sister Shu. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the side and grabbed Shu Yi's hand. She lost her grip, and the artifact fell to the ground with a thud, landing right on her feet. "Oh!" Shu Yi cried out in pain. She lifted one foot and jumped a few times on the spot. Only then did she see who it was. Zhushuming. "Senior Sister Shu, what are you doing here?" Zhushuming looked at her blankly. His expression was one of concern. "It's very dangerous at night." "You? Why are you here?" Shu Yi was completely stunned. "I chased you all the way here." Zhushuming said matter-of-factly. "I'm on night duty tonight. I'm guarding the West City Gate. When I saw you leave the city, I followed you." "What happened to you, Senior Sister Shu? Why are you limping?" Are you alright, Senior Sister Shu? Don't scare me. Shu Yi, Lone Moon, Yi Qing, Shining, how did this fellow get here? Indeed, Zhou Shuming was born to counter this invader, wasn't he? Chapter 664. With Shu Yi's delay, the demonic cultivator hiding below had already sensed something amiss. Suddenly, a white light flashed and a large amount of white flames, carrying with them an icy aura, rushed out from the graveyard in front of them, illuminating their surroundings with a snow-white light. The ground immediately cracked and the flames rushed towards the two of them like a tidal wave. Ding! High-energy source detected. Shu Yi's eyes were filled with joy. She urged in her heart, quick! 001, isolate this deviant flame and capture it. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand towards the flames. Faint specks of light appeared in her hand and she was about to touch the dark flames. Senior Sister Shu, be careful. Zhou Shuming suddenly flew towards Shu Yi. Instantly, he sent her flying 4 to 5 feet away from the range of the dark flames. As he used too much force, he crashed into the sticky mud at the side. Ding! Out of range, capture failed. There are 4 hours left until the next isolation period. The three of them watching from above. Were they really unnecessary? /under. Yet, Zhou Shuming did not seem to notice anything. He summoned his spirit sword and waved it around to block the endless flames. At the same time he asked worriedly, Senior Sister Shu, are you all right? This deviant flame suddenly appeared. Could it be that the fiendish cultivator is here? It's too dangerous. Senior Sister Shu. Senior Sister Shu, answer me. A while later. Shu Yi's grip tightened. She used both hands to pull her face out of the ground. Her entire face was covered in mud. Boundless rage erupted from her body. She was so angry that her entire body seemed to be on fire. She summoned a spirit sword and charged towards Zhou Shuming. I'll kill you. Zhou Shuming was shocked. He could only turn around to block her attack. He looked confused. Senior Sister Shu, why are you doing this? The fiendish cultivator is over there. Host, calm down. He can't die yet. The original owner's resentment has not dissipated yet. 001 panicked and hurriedly spoke up. To hell with your resentment. Shu Yi had completely lost her mind. She raised her sword and slashed at Zhou Shuming. She had forgotten all about spells and sword techniques. I want to kill him. I must kill him. I have to kill him. Host, this mission will fail. To hell with your mission. Host, be careful. 001 suddenly cried out in alarm. Taking advantage of the internal conflict between the two, the demonic cultivator emerged from the ground. With a wave of his hand, streams of demonic energy condensed into black wind blades mixed with white nether flames flew towards the two. Shu Yi's heart turned cold. Only then did he react. He quickly took out the Dharma artifact and threw it out. With a flash of red light from the magic tool, the demonic cultivator's movements suddenly trembled as if he was in great pain. His entire body curled up into a ball and let out a blood-curdling scream. Even the surrounding white flames became sluggish. It was you. The fiendish cultivator seemed to understand something. His eyes turned red and his face contorted even more. It was filled with hatred as if he wanted to eat Shu Yi alive. Tianji sent you here. I'm going to kill you. He roared angrily and his eyes turned even redder. As if he had made up his mind, he suddenly gritted his teeth and stabbed his hand into his chest. Blood flowed everywhere. Zhou Shuming and Shu Yi were stunned. They did not know why he was suddenly hurting himself. The blood on his chest suddenly turned black. In the next moment, thick black qi exploded from his body and spread out in all directions. It spread out in all directions and waves of bone-chilling cold air came rushing over. The three people in the air frowned. This was demonic qi. Shu Yi's heart sank. Suddenly she heard a crack. The round Dharma artifact above her head suddenly broke and fell to the ground. The red light that was suppressing the fiendish cultivator also disappeared. She was shocked. How was this possible? She could not help but panic. The expression of the demonic cultivator, Zhong Yi, who had originally hated Shu Yi to the bone, suddenly calmed down, and his entire person became even more sinister. A strange smile appeared on his skinny, skeleton-like face, as if he had become a different person in an instant. He suddenly opened his mouth and muttered, "Revenge? As you wish." But he was not talking to the two people in front of him. It was as if he was talking to himself. The system's voice rang in her ears. Warning. Danger. Danger. Detected a creature from a higher region in this plane. Host, please move quickly. Shu Yi felt a chill run down her spine. Her hair stood on end. She vaguely felt that the person in front of her was no longer Zhong Yi. But it was too late to run now. The other party raised his hand. Countless black chi surged towards them with a frightening murderous aura. Wherever it passed, even the grass and trees withered and withered. Zhuosheng's expression darkened. He tightened his grip on his sword. Senior Sister Shu, hurry back and inform. Before he could finish speaking, Shu Yi had already crushed the teleportation talisman in her hand. In the next moment, a white light shone and enveloped her entire body. She was about to disappear. The fiendish cultivator suddenly snorted. Trying to run? The black demonic chi swept over. The white light on Shu Yi's body dissipated. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. She remained in her original position. Senior Sister Shu. Zhuosheng's sword moved again. He immediately swung the demonic chi away. But it was useless. The demonic chi around them became even thicker. The fiendish cultivator's expression darkened. He laughed coldly. As the price of sacrifice, none of you can escape. With that said, the sky full of demonic chi surged towards them. It looked like the two of them were about to be swallowed. The three people who had been watching from above finally landed. I Ching waved his hand. Instantly, sword chi flowed in all directions. The originally pitch-black demonic chi dissipated instantly. Hey, $2, are you alright? Lone Moon turned back to look. Brother Lone Moon? $2 faltered. When he saw I Ching in front of him, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Supremacy. Who are you? The fiendish cultivator. No, he should be called a demon now. He looked at I Ching with some fear. I Ching did not reply. He was just an earth demon. He had no interest in talking at all. Lone Moon also turned to the two people behind him. Too dangerous here. You guys hurry back to the city? No. Zhuosheng retorted subconsciously. Shu Yi's expression darkened. As if afraid of exposing something, she immediately took out another teleportation talisman and crushed it. In the next moment, she disappeared on the spot. I asked you to leave. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hindrance. How can I leave Brother Lone Moon here? Zhuosheng still refused to move. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He sighed. Then he pulled the person who was chewing on a fruit beside him. Then take good care of her. Don't lose her. Zhuosheng. Was Miss Shen some valuable item? She needed to be taken care of? Shening. Son of AB*TC. Chapter 665. Who are you people? The demon looked at them coldly and frowned slightly, as if dissatisfied with their sudden interruption. But he didn't think much of them. Forget it, none of you can escape anyway. They didn't answer. Lone Moon stepped forward and asked, You're an earth demon, right? The demon paused and looked at him in surprise. I didn't think that there would be someone in this mortal realm who could recognize my true form. I kind of want to leave your corpses intact. Enough. Lone Moon interrupted her and asked, Don't pretend. Tell me, where did you get the dark fire? Arrogant and ignorant mortal. The demon was angry. He snorted and said, Do you think you can be so arrogant with a soul formation cultivator here? Not to mention that you have not become immortals. Even if an exalted immortal from the upper realm is here, my dark fire can still burn him clean. With that said, he raised his hand and a ball of white flame appeared in his palm. Lone Moon's face darkened. Were all demons like this? He felt uncomfortable if he didn't get beaten up. The corner of his mouth twitched. He turned to look at I Ching and said, Chef, do it. The kind that leaves us some breathing space. Chef waved his hand and summoned a spirit sword. You overestimate yourself. The earth demon waved his hand and a white flame rushed toward them. It looked like it was about to burn I Ching, but in the next moment, a fiery wall of fire suddenly appeared. It had an aura that could burn everything and it burned back at them. In an instant, the white flame seemed to be swallowed up by a spark and was extinguished with a few pops. How is this possible? The demon was completely stunned. His heart sank and he subconsciously took a step back. Immediately afterward, the overwhelming sword chi pressed down on him. It was so dense that he didn't even have the space to breathe. He felt a chill in his heart and cold sweat covered his entire back. The confidence he had just now was instantly shattered into pieces. This terrifying power was not the power of the lower realm. No, not even the upper realm. His underworld fire had been completely extinguished, and the fiery red flames were about to burn his body. Old Demon instantly, without any hesitation, fell to his knees and shouted, I was wrong. Exalted Goddess, please spare me. If there's anything that Exalted Goddess needs to know, I'll definitely tell you everything I know. Please give me a chance to speak, Exalted Goddess. I Ching, Lone Moon, Shining, Zwishumming. Sure enough, being tactful was a basic virtue that every demon must have. Straight face, tell me what's wrong with you. Lone Moon gestured for Chef to retract the true phoenix fire. He stepped forward and asked, did you just take over this mortal's body? Where's his soul? Yes. Old Demon immediately nodded. Afraid that they would misunderstand, he quickly said, he just traded his vitality to me, his soul is still in his body, I'm just a little demon, I can't swallow other people's souls. With that said, he instantly turned into a wisp of black smoke and floated out of his body, curling into a black ball. And the body of the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi fell directly to the ground, dead. Lone Moon glanced at him. Indeed, his soul was still in his body, it was just that he voluntarily gave his vitality to Old Demon. Even if Old Demon left his body, he was already a dead man. The few of them immediately turned to look at that ball of black chi. This has nothing to do with me. Old Demon's entire ball of black chi trembled. He hurriedly said honestly, he voluntarily gave his vitality to me, I can't refuse, right? What's more, his injuries are too serious, he's really at the end of his life, even if he didn't give me his vitality, he wouldn't live for more than a few days. Lone Moon sighed, then went forward and conjured a seal, sending that fiendish cultivator's soul into samsara. As a demon, how did you come to the mortal world? He continued to ask. Where's your body? Why is there only your primordial spirit left? And a ball of chi with vitality. That's a long story. Old Demon sighed, he said bitterly, actually, I don't know what happened either. I was originally a little demon in the demon world, then I got seriously injured in a fight with other demons, I thought I couldn't be cured. But when I woke up, I found myself in this mortal's body. As for how I came to the lower realm, I don't know either. Then what about the dark fire? Lone Moon continued to ask. Mortals can't come into contact with the dark fire, you were the one who brought it here. Exalted Goddess, I really don't know. The ball of demonic chi trembled even more violently. When I woke up, that ball of fire was already in my body. At first it was quite warm and obedient, but then it got colder and colder. That Zhong Yi tried to subdue that dark fire a few times, but he suffered from the backlash. We thought of many ways to move it out, but it still didn't work. You're saying that you don't know how that dark fire came to be? Yes. He nodded vigorously. Not only can that fire not be subdued, it can also corrode the soul at any time. It was only when the Exalted Goddess released that it completely got rid of it. He looked at I Ching curiously, wanting to ask but not daring to do so. That flame looked even scarier than the dark fire. Exalted Goddess, I really don't know what happened. Previously, I was trapped in Zhong Yi's body and I couldn't move, then Zhong Yi was locked up by Tianji for a few hundred years. Even if I wanted to harm him, I couldn't do anything, right? So you tricked him into giving you his life. Lone Moon narrowed his eyes. I was wrong. The Earth Demon instantly cowered. He just wanted to take over this body, who knew that it would end before he could even have any fun. Lone Moon frowned. It seemed like the Earth Demon really brought the dark fire to the fiendish cultivator, but why did the dark fire appear in the Earth Demon's primordial spirit? And from what he said, the dark fire didn't work on him in the beginning. What should we do with this Earth Demon? I Ching looked at the demon. Although he didn't even have a body, and was so weak that even ordinary demons could trample him to death, I Ching couldn't let him stay in the mortal world forever. What else can we do? Lone Moon rolled his eyes at the ball of demonic chi. Throw him back. With that said, he took out a transmission talisman and sent a bit of immortal chi into it. A moment later, Yu Hong's voice came through. Elder Lone Moon? Yu Hong, is Little Black in the sect? Yu Hong paused for a moment, then replied. Yes. Do you need me to call him over? Later we'll send a delivery back. Lone Moon picked up the demon and said, ask Little Black to handle it. Yes. I Ching raised his hand and drew a line, instantly opening the realm gate. Lone Moon turned and threw the ball of demonic chi into it. Yu Hong, do you see it? Yes, I see it. That's it then. Lone Moon then cut off the communication. Yu Hong looked at the things in her hands. Elder Lone Moon had sent many things back, but most of them were immortal stones, dharma artifacts, spirit herbs and all kinds of precious treasures. This was the first time she received a ball of demonic chi. Most importantly, it was for Little Black. An hour later, Little Black received a message from his wife. saying that she had something for him. He was full of joy as he sped up from the demon world. What the hell? Why did his wife give him a ball of demonic chi and a half-crippled earth demon at that? Suddenly he thought of something. His face instantly paled and his entire demon king felt terrible. He hugged Yu Hong and wailed, "Xiao Hong, you actually have another demon outside. Tell me honestly, do you want to divorce me? I don't agree." "No. Little Hong, what did I do wrong? I'll change, alright?" Yu Hong, the trembling earth demon, MBZ. Chapter 666. Yuanyang City. Chef, where do you think the dark fire came from? Lone Moon turned to look at I Ching. Logically speaking, the dark fire was in the divine underworld. Even if the other party was a demon, he could not have brought it back from the divine underworld. Not to mention that he was just an earth demon, even Little Black did not have the ability to break through the realm gates of the divine underworld to obtain the dark fire. I Ching frowned and shook his head. Logically speaking, with Shorty in the divine underworld, there should not be any dark fire left in the mortal world or the divine underworld. That might not be the case, Shining suddenly said. The two of them paused and turned back. What do you mean? Isn't there a hole? She replied. Oh. Lone Moon paused and suddenly thought of something. You mean the hole in the river of forgetfulness in the divine underworld? Master means? I Ching also reacted. That dark fire fell from the river of forgetfulness? Shining nodded. The two of them thought about it carefully. It was indeed possible. The dark fire was used by the divine underworld to receive souls. It was normal for it to appear in the river of forgetfulness. And that earth demon said that he was seriously injured and thought that he would not wake up. Now it seemed that it was not just a thought. Instead, he was already dead. His soul returned to the river of forgetfulness and went to the divine underworld. But before he could reincarnate, the invader broke a hole in the river of forgetfulness. He was probably in that position and was squeezed down to the lower world together with the dark fire, falling into Zhong Yi's body. This could explain why he felt that the dark fire did not have any attack power at first. Because he was originally a dead soul, the dark fire naturally had no effect on him. But he was in that fiendish cultivator's body and was more or less infected with the other party's vitality. The dark fire would naturally burn him. And he did not know anything just now, as if he did not remember much. It should be because he entered the river of forgetfulness that his memory was erased, but not completely erased. I remember Shorty said that a soul was lost in the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon suddenly remembered this. Could it be this earth demon? I Ching's expression darkened and he nodded in agreement. It was obvious. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. At the end of the day, it was still that invader's fault. It seemed like they had to quickly resolve this matter. Otherwise, who knew what kind of mess the other party would create for them to clean up? Their speed was still a bit too slow. They had to make use of this time to improve their cultivation. A lot of training plans flashed through Lone Moon's mind. Zhuishuming, who was meditating next door. Why did he suddenly feel a chill down his spine? Hearing that the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi had been dealt with, Shu Yuan heaved a huge sigh of relief. He no longer looked nervous and serious but relaxed completely. He smiled brightly at I Ching and said, Uncle Master, indeed, you actually dealt with this demon so quickly. But how did Martial Uncle find this demon? It wasn't me. I Ching replied. Shu Yuan was stunned, not understanding what he meant. Zhuishuming, who was at the side, said with a serious expression, Elder Shu, actually this matter is all thanks to Senior Sister Shu. No, Uncle Master Shu. If she had not found traces of this fiendish cultivator outside the West City, Supremacy I Ching would not have found this demon so quickly. You mean Little E? Shu Yuan was shocked, a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. She left the city last night? That's right. Zhuishuming nodded vigorously. Uncle Master Shu must have been worried that this demon would harm the senior and junior brothers. That's why she stayed up all night and finally found the fiendish cultivator's hiding place. Although the process was a little dangerous, at least it was resolved. Uncle Master Shu is indeed a golden core. Before he could finish, Shu Yuan's expression darkened and he said angrily, She's getting more and more reckless these days. She doesn't even listen to me, her father. With that said, he left the few of them behind and turned to leave angrily. Elder Shu. Why did he leave just like that? Zhuishuming turned back to look at the three of them innocently. Did I say something wrong just now? Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining. He was indeed a professional hater of Shu Yi. Why did he have to be completely calm and collected about it? // Shu Yuan of Danshan Mountain was an especially strict person. Whether it was to his disciples or to his own daughter, he was especially strict with them. What's more, he was also the hall master of the discipline hall. He was in charge of the punishment of all the disciples in Guiyi sect. He had always been selfless. One could say that he was an overly righteous person. Shu Yi had left the city secretly in the middle of the night. Of course she had gone against the rules. Zhou Shuming blurted out. His hater hit the nail on the head. There was no doubt that there would be an argument between the father and daughter. But Shu Yuan did not punish her too severely. After all, she was Tianji's personal disciple. Since she had already entered the sect, all her punishments and rewards had to be handed over to Tianji. Even if Shu Yuan was her father, he would not be able to interfere. But in the next few days Shu Yi did not come out again. Without the threat of the fiendish cultivator, the mission this time progressed especially quickly. The disciples only stayed in the city for 4 days. Those who had been affected by the evil qi were more or less healed. Shu Yuan left some elixirs and led the disciples away on the spirit boat. Zhou Shuming then saw Shu Yi, whom he had not seen for a few days. He subconsciously went forward to greet her. "Uncle Master Shu, you get lost." Before he could finish speaking, Shu Yi suddenly turned and glared at him. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife. She wanted to poke a few holes in his body. Zhou Shuming froze. He even forgot to put down his hand that was about to greet her. But she snorted coldly and boarded the spirit boat. Then she found a seat furthest away from him and sat down with her back facing him. It was as if she would not be able to suppress her anger if she looked at him one more time. Zhou Shuming, who had wanted to ask about her injuries, slowly put down his hand. Instantly he felt that something was blocking him. He turned and nudged the person beside him. "Brother Lone Moon, what's wrong with senior sister Shu? Why did she suddenly become so fierce?" Her gaze seemed to want to kill him. "You don't know?" Lone Moon gave him an indescribable look. "You've already tricked her so many times. Don't you have any F***king idea?" "I don't know." Zhou Shuming looked confused. "I found it strange before. It seems that ever since we moved out of the main peak she became strange?" Lone Moon glared at him. "I'm giving you a look to figure it out yourself. Could it be?" He suddenly thought of something. His expression was one of shock. "What?" He looked around and lowered his voice nervously. "Do you think she knows that I don't like how she used to be? That's why she deliberately became like this to attract my attention?" Lone Moon, I Ching at the side, straight face, he was speechless. A while later, 2 pieces. Lone Moon took a deep breath and patted his shoulder. I say, you right? Although you're ugly, you're quite wishful thinking." He vaguely felt that he had been stabbed. After thinking about it, he could not help but retort. "But she really changed a lot. In the past she was very warm to us. Now she doesn't even care about Miss Shen." "How do you know that she doesn't care about Shining? They didn't even know each other." "I saw it." Zhou Shuming turned and pointed opposite him. Lone Moon subconsciously turned back. He saw that Shu Yi, who was sitting alone just now, suddenly had an additional figure beside her. He supported his head with one hand and held a fruit in the other. As he nibbled on it, he tilted his head and looked at Shu Yi seriously. They were so close that they were almost touching each other's faces. Yet Shu Yi did not seem to notice. "Holy shit." Lone Moon stood up abruptly. "When did that fellow go over? Is identical to..." Chapter 667. "Shining, what are you doing?" Lone Moon transmitted. "Huh." Shining turned back to look. "Huh, what? Why did you suddenly go over there?" "Don't be discovered by the intruder." "I'm studying it." "Studying? Who would go up there to study it?" The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Shining did not reply, but continued to stare at the person in front of her, not forgetting to nibble on the fruit. Yet the other party did not react at all, still sitting cross-legged in the same place. Until, "Wait, Shining." Lone Moon was shocked. Perhaps because she was too bored, she suddenly reached out a finger and poked the other party's face. Shu Yi's angry face sank instantly, even her face became crooked. Shu Yi then reacted and was instantly shocked. "Who are you?" When did this person get here? She actually did not see her at all. Subconsciously, she called the system small broadcast. 001. "What's going on? Why didn't you warn me that someone was coming?" Host, I did not sense it either. Perhaps the energy waves on this person's body are too weak to be detected, so I did not get scanned. Shu Yi took a closer look, only to find that there was no spirit qi in the other party's body. She was actually immortal? But why would such a person be on the spirit boat? She frowned. What do you want? Air? Xining stiffened, then seriously handed over the fruit in her hand. Do you want to eat the fruit? Shu Yi glanced at the half-eaten fruit in her hand, and her expression darkened. She suddenly poked her just to ask if she wanted to eat the fruit. Instantly, she felt a little angry, did not expect there to be such a rude disciple in the sect, and directly replied coldly, "No need." Only then did Xining shrink back and continue to take a bite. In the next moment the system broadcast sounded again. Host, hurry and accept it. That is a 1,000-year-old red mystic fruit. Eat it and your cultivation will directly increase by 1 level. What? Shu Yi was shocked and said with some anxiety, "Why didn't you say so earlier? I've just detected it as well." Shu Yi's expression changed. She could not miss a fruit that could increase one's cultivation by 1 level. She took a deep breath, then squeezed out a stiff smile, looked at Xining and said, "Junior sister." Oh? Xining turned to look at her. This fruit? Before she could finish, Xining suddenly lowered her head and sped up like a squirrel. In the blink of an eye, she had finished half of the fruit in her hand, leaving only the core. She wiped her mouth and asked, "What's wrong?" "This is intentional, right?" "Definitely. For all. Ngenguro, host, quick. Ask her to keep the core of the fruit and plant it in the system shop. It might be able to survive." Shu Yi came back to her senses and was immediately overjoyed. "Junior apprentice sister, this fruit core? Kacha." Xining clenched her fists and broke the core of the fruit into 2. She picked out the kernel and stuffed it into her mouth right in front of Yi Qing. She swallowed it with a few slurps and turned back to look at Yi Qing. "You want it? Here." As he spoke, he stuffed the drenched nuclear fragment into the other party's hand. "Shu Yi, the system, why do I feel like I've been played?" "Master?" Before she could react, Yi Qing had already hurried over to save the situation. He glanced at Shu Yi. If he did not interrupt, he was afraid that Shu Yi would be embarrassed into anger. Shu Yi suppressed the anger in her heart and had no choice but to stand up and bow. "Greetings, Supremacy Yi Qing." Yi Qing did not reply and only looked at Xining. "Master, breakfast is ready. It's time to eat." "Oh." Xining then stood up and followed Yi Qing into the ship's cabin. Time to go." Shu Yi's expression darkened. Looking at the 2 people walking away, she finally understood their identities. This new sword cultivator Supremacy had a mortal master. She had heard that it was her, she did not expect it to be her. No wonder she had the Zhuxian fruit. Thinking about how she actually missed out on half of the Zhuxian fruit, she instantly regretted it. If she had that fruit, it would be much easier for her to form a nascent soul in the future. On second thought, she remembered that Zhuxiang was now on the other party's floating peak. Her heart was filled with even more hatred. No. She had to hurry to suppress Zhuxiang and reduce the original owner's resentment value, otherwise the mission would really fail. System, what is the original owner's resentment value now? Original owner's resentment value, 65. Shu Yi felt a sense of danger that she had never felt before. After returning to Guiyi sect, Shu Yi directly went into seclusion. Lone Moon checked from time to time and found that her cultivation was indeed rising very quickly. There were faint signs that she had already entered the middle stage of Golden Core. On the other hand, Zhuxiang's cultivation had not changed ever since he reached the late stage of foundation establishment. No matter how hard he cultivated, there was no sign of him forming a core at all. Lone Moon understood that he just lacked an opportunity. However, this opportunity did not come for a long time. He originally thought that this trip to Yuanyang City would allow him to gain enlightenment or something. In the end, apart from angering Shu Yi half to death, nothing else happened. This was the first time he saw someone's cultivation rising so slowly. If this continued, he might have formed a nascent soul and he would still be looking forward to the foundation establishment stage. Disciples were not enlightened. Most likely they lacked beatings. They would get used to it after a few more times. It was just that this Zhuxiang had no other advantages. The more he beat him, the tougher he became. In the past, he would fall in seconds. Now, he could actually last a few seconds in his hands. Hence, as he beat him, he got tired of it. He really could not take it anymore. He directly threw him into the sword array. Hence, the 10-level sword array reappeared in the pugilistic world. Zhuxiang wailed at the bottom for a few years before he slowly got used to the sword array. At least he could come out in one piece. Even his sword techniques became more familiar. He already had the vague appearance of a sword cultivator. But his cultivation still did not grow. Even if he had little Biao scales in his body, continuously providing immortal qi and nourishment, his cultivation seemed to be stuck at the late stage of foundation establishment. He did not move at all. Just as Lone Moon was thinking of a way to let 2 bucks grow his cultivation, Tianyi brought him a piece of news. Sect competition? Lone Moon was stunned. That's right. Tianyi drank a mouthful of tea and nodded. In my Guei sect, there will be a sect competition every 10 years. It is divided into 2 categories, pill refinement and spells. Of course, the most important is pill refinement. Brother Lone Moon has been in foundation establishment for a long time. Why not give it a try? Lone Moon thought about it carefully. 2 bucks had been beaten up by them too many times. He had not been beaten up by others yet. Perhaps he could really learn something by participating in this competition. But, we are sword cultivators. He had never taught 2 bucks anything about pill refinement. He probably could not even pass the preliminary round. That's all right. Tianyi smiled. Although our sect focuses on pill refinement, because of Supremacy I Ching's participation, we changed the format of the competition this year. Spells and pill refinement are separate. What's more, each peak master can choose 1 person to directly enter the finals. Brother Lone Moon, don't worry. I have already reported your name. You just have to focus on the competition. What? Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Why did he have to report his name all of a sudden? He did not want to participate. Didn't you have a bunch of disciples? I thank you. You're welcome. Tianyi smiled proudly. This is what a brother should do. Who's a brother with you? Lone Moon sighed. Then he said, Brother Tianyi, I have a favor to ask. Brother Lone Moon, please speak. Can you change my name to Zhuoshuming's? Tianyi was stunned. A moment later he looked at Lone Moon. He seemed to be filled with thousands of puzzlement and resentment. Lone Moon's hair stood on end. Wait a minute. What's with that aggrieved expression? And what's with that, so you only see Zhuoshuming as a brother look? I am a proper businessman. Don't make things up for yourself. Chapter 668. In the end, Tianyi still did not give the slot to Zhuoshuming, not because he was unwilling, but because the floating peak that Lone Moon and the rest lived on, in the eyes of the disciples, was already an independent peak of Guei sect. So I Ching, who was tacitly acknowledged as the peak master, could also send 1 person to the finals. Zhuoshuming undoubtedly entered the finals in the name of Nameless Peak. That's right, because their floating peak had not been given a name for a long time, everyone tacitly called it Nameless Peak. But there was only 1 slot, and other than Lone Moon having a little presence here with Tianyi in the eyes of others, he was at most Zhuoshuming's follower. In this way, Tianyi naturally thought that he was left behind. Things proved that some people were tricked into forming revolutionary friendships. In order to take care of Lone Moon's good friend's feelings, Supremacy Tianyi eagerly transferred his own peak slot to Lone Moon and reported his name. So, Lone Moon was inexplicably sent to the finals and it was already announced, it could not be changed. Lone Moon, son of AB***. The sect competition was set to be 3 days later. Yuan even specially came up to inform Chef about this, asking him not to be present. His words revealed that he wanted Chef to decide on the spot to accept a few more disciples into the mountain. Although basically no one in Guei sect chose to cultivate the sword, they could still recruit people. In these few years, the outer sect had actually recruited many disciples to learn the sword. After all, a soul formation sword cultivator was here. There was no fear that no one would come, especially after the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi's death. Guei sect's reputation had already spread. Even Tai Yin sect had sent people to inquire about I Ching several times. The current Guei sect was already different from the sect that only sold elixirs in the past. In short, they had the conditions to nurture sword cultivators. Even if they didn't, they had to create the conditions to nurture them. Anyway, their pill cultivators were rich, they could afford it. Lone Moon was well aware of I Ching's thoughts. He also guessed that such a day would come, so he set up the sword array in advance and even threw 2 bucks in. Anyway, no matter how many disciples were recruited into the peak, the task of teaching people would still fall on his head. Chef could be in charge of food, but he definitely could not be counted on to teach disciples. As for Shining, taking advantage of the preliminary competition, Lone Moon also gave 2 bucks extra training, the kind that trained him to death. Finally, on the day before the finals, 2 bucks passed the first level of the sword array. Only then was he reassured to let him participate in the competition. There were many disciples in Guiyi sect, so the sect competition actually lasted for an entire month. It was divided into alchemy and sorcery. It was easy to determine the winner of the competition in spells, but it was not so easy to determine the winner of the competition in pill refinement. Foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators were still fine. They did not know how to refine pills, and generally a furnace of pills would not take more than 3 days. However, it was different for golden core cultivators and above. Golden core cultivators could already concoct pills of the 3rd grade and above. The training time was usually more than 10 days. That was why Guiyi sect's competition was not like other sects, where the winner could be decided in 3 to 4 days. 20 days later, the finalists were finally decided. Wuxia and Lone Moon were participating in the sorcery competition. When they arrived at the competition venue, they found out that there were more than 50 people who had made it to the finals. Most of them were foundation establishment cultivators. There were even a few golden core cultivators. Lone Moon frowned. He then realized that in this so-called sorcery competition, golden core and foundation establishment cultivators were mixed together. Of course, this was unfair to the foundation establishment cultivators. But Guiyi sect was a sect that mainly focused on pill refinement. There were too few disciples who did not cultivate pill refinement. There was no need to separate them. Besides, the main focus of the competition was pill refinement. He looked carefully at the crowd. Strangely, he found that the invader, Shu Yi, was here too. His gaze swept over Wuxia from time to time, as if he was preparing to do something. But a certain silly guy did not seem to notice anything. From the moment he entered the competition venue, he had been hugging his sword, looking nervous and unsure. He was not afraid of losing. He was mainly afraid of embarrassing supremacy I Ching and Lady Shen. After all, he was here representing Nameless Peak. That was why since 3 days ago, he had been calculating his sword moves in his mind. He was afraid that he would lose too badly. Even when he got on the stage and swept the cultivator off the stage with one sword move, he still had not recovered from his nervousness. That sword move just now, was it made by him? But didn't the other party fall a little too quickly? This was different from what he had imagined. Back when he was practicing with Brother Lone Moon, he was the one who was swept off the stage. Two Bucks Zua, who had been beaten up and had not been able to turn the tables, was shocked. Only then did he react. So the sword technique that Brother Lone Moon taught him was actually so powerful? And the following competition made him even more unable to believe his own eyes. The sword moves that Lone Moon had repeatedly looked down on in the past actually won all the way. Those foundation establishment disciples of the same sect would not last more than 10 moves against him. They would all be defeated by his sword. It was so smooth that it was as if everyone was going easy on him. Wuxia was completely stunned. He had never thought that the cultivation that he had always looked down on was actually so powerful. Oh, greater than over equal to V. Oh, ever since he knew that he was going to participate in the competition, his heart that had been hanging in the balance suddenly fell to the ground. His confidence was like a balloon that was being inflated. It had never been so strong before. Even when he met an opponent in the golden core stage, he could calm down and think of sword moves. Then he could withstand the other party's suppressive aura and attack move by move. And he actually won in the end. There was an uproar in the crowd. This was a cross-level challenge and he actually won. He was indeed an unkillable sword cultivator. For a moment, all the disciples could not help but look at a certain person on the stage. Even his disciple was so powerful. Then how powerful would a soul formation supremacy be? Even Yu Luan could not help but turn to look at I Ching. He exclaimed, "He is indeed from Nameless Peak. He can actually cross-level challenges. Congratulations, Uncle Master. You have indeed taught an impressive disciple." I Ching, who was peeling melon seeds. Shining, who was eating melon seeds. Meow meow meow. Nameless Peak, Wuxia wins. Wuxia was also dumbfounded. He had thought that he would definitely lose, but he actually won. He did not even use his full strength. Instantly he felt as if he was dreaming. He looked down at the sword in his hand. For the first time in his life he felt what a true sword cultivator was. For a moment, a wild joy surged in his heart. If this was his true strength, then perhaps he could really win in the end. He tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. His eyes were filled with confidence and anticipation. He could win. He could really win. No. Lone Moon walked up to the stage. Baji. He faintly felt that something in the bottom of his heart had fallen to the ground and shattered into pieces. His whole person was like a punctured ball. With a crackling sound, his confidence was completely gone. Wuxia. Could he admit defeat? Don't bully him like this. Was there even a need to compete? Chapter 669. The spells competition had already reached the end. Other than Lone Moon and Zhuoshuming, Shu Yi and the other 2 personal disciples from the other 2 peaks had all entered the top 5. Sect Master Yuluan glanced at the last 5, perhaps recognizing Lone Moon. He could not help but turn back and praise. Sword cultivators indeed. There are only 2 disciples from Nameless Peak, but they actually both entered the top 5. Especially this Zhuoshuming. In just a few years he has already cultivated sword chi. I think there is no suspense for this year's champion. Uncle Master I Ching is indeed good at teaching. He swept a glance at the 2 dueling people in the arena, especially at a certain person whose sword was about to fall. His mouth twitched, but before he could reply, Tianyi's face darkened and he immediately retorted. You're right. Isn't Sect Master's words too early? He snorted coldly and said with some indignation, not to mention others, I see that Brother Loneman's sword skills are sharp and his spirit chi is restrained. He could sweep his opponent off the stage in less than 10 moves in the previous competition. One look and I can tell that he has a deep understanding of sword skills. I think he should be the champion this year. Yuan was taken aback. What Brother Lone Moon? When did Uncle Master Tian Yi acknowledge a brother? Uncle Master I Ching had a mortal master. They had a grandmaster out of nowhere. Since when did the disciples of the peak become brothers with Uncle Master Tian Yi? Speaking of which, was taking advantage of seniority a tradition of Nameless Peak? My brother Lone Moon is loyal. Although he is a sword cultivator, he is involved in pills, talismans, arrays and weapons, especially his understanding of array formations. Tian Yi continued to praise without blinking. Sect Master is not sure, don't make wild guesses. I think that Zhuo might not be his match. No matter what, he had to support his brother. Yuluan broke out in cold sweat. He had originally wanted to suck up to Supremacy I Ching and get him to take in more disciples. He did not expect Uncle Master Tian Yi to join in. Yet he could not rebut, he could only smile awkwardly and reply, Uncle Master Tian Yi's words are not without reason. Of course. Only then was Tian Yi satisfied. He continued to support Lone Moon with pride. This brother of mine, be it in terms of character, comprehension or cultivation, they are all rare. Other than him there is no other. I admit defeat. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly heard Lone Moon, who had just entered the arena, shout. Tian Yi. Yuluan, the master and disciple duo, 2 pieces who thought they were going to get beaten up. Huh? What was going on? Tian Yi felt a slight pain on his face. Sect Master Yuluan, who was at the side, gave him a speechless expression. Wasn't he supposed to be the leader? Tian Yi's face turned pale and he was completely stunned. This was not an immortal spell. His brother Lone Moon was definitely not the kind of person who would give up without a fight. There must be some special reason. That's right, that's definitely it. Could it be that he suffered some sort of injury while preparing for the competition? The more he thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. He suddenly stood up. No, I have to go take a look. In any case, he had plenty of medicinal pills. With that said, he did not care about Yuluan anymore and disappeared from the spectator stand in a flash. The master and disciple duo? Should they tell him that Father Nyo was just sick of beating up 2 pieces Zhua and was too lazy to do it? Zhuoshuming had already been announced as the winner. Lone Moon did not stay either. He turned and walked down the stage, his gaze sweeping across Shu Yi. It was not because he did not want to beat up 2 pieces Zhua, but because this was already the semi-finals. If he won against Zhuoshuming, he might be the one facing Shu Yi in the end. He was a manager and had been an assistant in this plane before. No matter what, he would have some nomological powers. Shu Yi was an invader and had a system on her. If they really fought, there might be a risk of being exposed. So he might as well admit defeat here. Besides, 2 pieces Zhuo was born to be the nemesis of this person. Although he was only at the foundation establishment stage and his cultivation was a whole realm lower than the other party, he might not win. But in terms of angering Shu Yi to death, he was still very professional. At the same time, he also wanted to see, with the help of the system, how much Shu Yi's cultivation had improved during this period of seclusion. Lone Moon's guess was right. Zhuoshuming and Shu Yi each won against the other 2 disciples. The 2 of them entered the final battle. Shu Yi seemed to be very satisfied with such an outcome. The way she looked at Zhuoshuming was determined to win. There was even a faint murderous aura around her, as if she could not wait to rush over and beat the other party up. Uncle Master. Yet Zhuoshuming still did not feel anything. He even cupped his fists and bowed politely. Smiling naively, he said, "Long time no see. I didn't think that I would have the chance to fight with Uncle Master Shu." "Oh right, I wonder." "Shut up." Shu Yi directly interrupted him. As if she had gained experience from being angered, without waiting for him to finish, she directly summoned her Dharma artifact and attacked him without saying a word. Using the advantage of being one realm higher, she even released the suppressive force of a golden core cultivator and used all her strength to suppress the other party's movements. Zhou Shuming was stunned. His movements paused for a moment. Immediately, he also mobilized the sword chi around him to resist the suppressive force of the other party. Changing from his naive look just now, he directly summoned several spirit swords and faced it without dodging. Just as the two of them were about to fight, the entire Guiyi sect suddenly shook violently. A loud boom sounded as if there was the sound of something exploding. The protective mountain array was suddenly activated. 8 huge spirit swords instantly appeared around Guiyi sect. A layer of transparent array directly enveloped the entire Guiyi sect. What's going on? All the disciples were shocked. One by one they looked around in confusion. Even Zhou Shuming and Shu Yi, who were competing in the middle, had no choice but to stop. Sect Master Yu Luan's expression changed. He stood up abruptly and turned to look at the right side of the main peak. The sound is coming from Danshan Peak. Danshan Peak. Lord Shu Yuan's expression darkened. He directly turned to fly on his sword and flew towards that direction. The competition will stop first. Yu Luan instructed. With that, he also turned and flew towards Danshan Peak. The other nascent soul elders were also not in the mood to care about the competition. They all followed to see the situation. I Ching released his divine perception to check. Frowning, he turned to look at the person beside him. "Master, Shining nodded. So the two of them also chased in the direction of the crowd. Danshan Peak was not far from the main peak. Originally they would be able to see it once they left the main peak. However, the crowd did not see Danshan Peak from their original position. There was a faint burnt smell in the air. Looking down, they realized that Danshan Peak had already sunk down. The floating peak that was originally similar to the other peaks seemed to have been exploded from the middle. Only the top section was left. And the lower half of the peak had already completely collapsed. It turned into gravel and fell down. That was why the protective mountain array was triggered. It floated below the peaks. All the elders' expressions darkened. One by one they flew down towards the remaining half of Danshan Peak. Before they could land, a turbulent wave of spirit chi suddenly rushed toward them. "This is..." Yu Luan's expression turned pale. Someone self-destructed their nascent soul. Chapter 670. At the side, Shu Yuan suddenly thought of something and his expression changed. "Junior brother Yin." With that said, he headed directly towards the back of the remaining half of the floating peak. Everyone looked at each other and immediately followed him. Turning around the floating peak, they saw that the whole back of the mountain was in chaos. The spirit fields that were originally planted with spirit herbs were now a thick black. Half of the broken part of the floating peak was left with a huge pit. The aura of a nascent soul cultivator and traces of cold black chi were faintly lingering around. I Ching frowned. This black chi was... It really is junior brother Yin. A trace of sorrow flashed across Shu Yuan's face, instantly filled with anger. Who on earth dared to attack our sect's nascent soul elder, and even forced him to self-destruct his nascent soul? Yu Luan's expression also changed. He hurriedly turned to look at a disciple behind him and said, "Go, inform the disciples guarding the exit of each peak, seal the mountain gates and guard them strictly. No one is allowed to enter or leave." "Yes." The disciple immediately turned and went to pass the order. Yu Luan's heart was also full of anger. He did not expect that the sect would lose a nascent soul elder just like that, and on such an important day like the sect competition, he attacked silently, and even self-destructed his nascent soul in such a tragic way. The key was that none of them noticed. This proved that Elder Yin might not even have a chance to call for help. He carefully looked around the charred back of the mountain, his eyes fixed on the black chi that had not yet dissipated. This is demonic chi. Could it be that a fiendish cultivator sneaked in? His eyes darkened. Just as he was about to fly down to check, I Ching suddenly reached out and pulled him back. "Wait. Uncle Master I Ching? It's not demonic chi." I Ching glanced at the black chi and said in a low voice, "It's demonic chi." "What?" Not only Yu Luan, even the elders were shocked, their faces full of disbelief. "Demonic chi? Uncle Master, you mean this black chi is..." "The demonic chi of the fiend race," I Ching said with certainty. Everyone's faces paled. When they looked carefully at the area surrounded by the black chi, they found that they could faintly see the withered and corroded spirit plants in the scorched area in the back of the mountain. It was clear that it was not caused by Elder Yin's nascent soul explosion, but by the influence of the black chi. To be able to make plants wither in an instant and exterminate all living beings, this really is the legendary devil chi. Someone cried out in surprise. Everyone's expressions turned even uglier. Even the few elders who were standing closer to the front subconsciously took a step back. This was demonic energy. In ancient legends, only the god race could rival the aura of the devil race. Could it be that the one who killed junior brother Ian is a Mo clan? Yulwan froze. That was a demon, not a fiendish cultivator. Not to mention their Guei sect. Even if all the immortal sects joined forces, they might not be a match for it. No. I Ching's eyes darkened and he said with certainty, if the demons appeared, they would not have left behind such little demonic chi. Yulwan's heart relaxed and he nodded. He looked down and his expression became more serious. Then these demonic chi, what should we do? If it was just ordinary demonic chi they would not be afraid. But demonic chi, they might not even be able to get close to it. As if sensing their concerns, I Ching directly took a step forward. With a wave of his hand, a red wall of fire swept towards the black chi on the ground. Almost in the blink of an eye, the demonic chi that was originally left on the ground disappeared completely. Even the originally scorched ground regained some of its original color. Yulwan was then completely relieved. He turned and gave a few instructions to the elders, and then split up to look for clues about the enemy. Unfortunately, no matter how the few of them turned this destroyed floating peak upside down, they did not find any clues. Everyone could only fly back to the main hall with solemn expressions. Yulwan brought out the broken life token of Elder Ian who self-destructed his nascent soul. He wanted to use the remnant aura on the life token to investigate the situation before his death, but the spell also failed. He could not see who did it at all. Fortunately, because of the competition, most of the disciples on the peak were gathered on the main peak. Danshan Peak was destroyed, other than Elder Ian who self-destructed his nascent soul, and a few disciples who guarded the peak were seriously injured. There were no other casualties. But at that time the protective mountain array was activated in time. The other party could not escape at all, which meant that it was very likely that the person was still hiding in the sect. Yulwan could only completely stop the sect competition, then seal the mountain, and start a comprehensive investigation in the sect. Demonic chi? Why is there still more? Lone Moon, who returned and heard the situation, was stunned. He turned to look at Chef. Could it be that other than that earth demon who fell from the river of forgetfulness, there are other demons in this small world? Probably not. Chef shook his head. If there really is a demon descending to the lower realm, he would definitely be suppressed by the heavenly Tao. He would not easily make a move here. Just like the earth demon back then, although it did not have a physical body with the abilities of the demon race, it was easy for it to reconstruct a body. But it did not do so. Instead it resided in the body of a fiendish cultivator, not even daring to take possession. Because it was constantly suppressed by the heavenly Tao, it did not dare to come out at all, otherwise the heavenly Tao would eliminate it at the first instance. Not a demon? Could it be that there is a fiendish cultivator who cultivated to become an earth demon here? After a fiendish cultivator reached the soul formation stage, if he could survive the heavenly tribulation, he could naturally ascend to the demonic realm. That full of evil chi could also turn into demonic chi. Just like back then in the realm of Three Pristine, in that immortal ascension pagoda, the cultivator that Shining met who became a demon had already cultivated demonic chi. If that's the case. I Ching thought of something, frowned and said, that person should not be able to break through my protective mountain array. He must still be in Guei sect now, but I used my divine perception to scan the entire Guei sect. I did not find any trace of demonic chi. Not even evil chi. Impossible. Lone Moon retorted subconsciously. There's no one in this plane that you can't detect, unless the other person is not in this position. He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening abruptly. Holy shit. It can't be. It's an intruder. But wasn't Shu Yi clearly competing that day? Don't tell me there's another one? Was he here to travel together? I Ching's expression darkened. Just as he was about to say something, a voice suddenly came from outside. Disciple Chen, one of the main peak, greets supremacy. What's the matter? I Ching replied in a low voice. Sect Master said there's an urgent matter. He invites supremacy to the main hall. I Ching exchanged a look with Lone Moon. Seeing him nod, he then replied, "I'll be there right away." The disciple bowed, then turned and left. Seeing that it was already noon, thinking that Yulwan might have found some clues, the few of them did not delay for too long, just a simple meal, a cup of tea and a few plates of snacks and fruits. Only then did they set off for the main hall. Chapter 671. When the three of them arrived at the main hall, it was already filled with people. The nascent soul elders of each peak were all present. Lone Moon glanced around. Shu Yi and 2 Bucks were actually inside now, standing in the middle of the main hall. Something seemed to have happened. The atmosphere was somewhat heavy. 2 Bucks, who had always been good-tempered, had a rare look of anger. "Greetings, Uncle Master." Seeing the few of them enter, everyone bowed. On the left, an unfamiliar nascent soul perfected one did not even move. Instead, he snorted coldly and turned his head, his eyes filled with dissatisfaction and anger. I Ching also felt that the atmosphere was not right, but did not care much, walking straight to the only empty seat at the top. Habitually, he turned his body to let Shining, who was behind him, sit down. He stood on the right. Even Lone Moon followed suit and stood on the left. Perhaps because of the urgency of the situation, no one paid attention to these details. Instead, Tian Yi, who was at the side, turned to look at Lone Moon and suddenly said, "Brother Lone Moon, don't worry, I absolutely believe in your character." Lone Moon was stunned. What did he mean? So he called them here not only because there was a new clue, it seemed like they were also involved? Uncle Master I Ching. Sect Master Yulwan then stood up and said, "We invited Uncle Master here because we have something to confirm with you. That day when Uncle Master went to Yuanyang City to eliminate the fiend, when you chased after the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi, did you notice anything wrong with the other party?" I Ching turned to look at him, frowned and said, "What is wrong?" "That is." A hint of hesitation flashed across Yulwan's face, as if he did not know how to answer. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Uncle Master, are you sure that the fiendish cultivator is really dead?" "Of course." I Ching frowned even deeper, still answering in a low voice, "That fiendish cultivator's corpse was handled by Elder Shu Yuan." With that said, he looked towards Shu Yuan, who was sitting on the right. "That's right." Shu Yuan also stood up, nodded and answered, "I can prove this. After Uncle Master I Ching dealt with that fiendish cultivator, he informed me to rush over that night. That fiendish cultivator is indeed dead. The corpse was even handled by me using the live fire spell, to prevent other fiendish cultivators from using the nascent soul corpse to do evil. Who knows if the one who died was Zhongyi?" The nascent soul cultivator on the left suddenly interrupted with a hint of disdain. Before they could speak, 2 Bucks, who was at the side, became anxious. As if he had been holding it in for a long time, he cupped his fists and said, "Perfected Jing Yuan, that person is indeed Zhong Yi. Not only me but senior sister Shu also saw it." Shu Yi was stunned for a moment, and he quickly said with a face full of panic, I don't know either. That day, after we accidentally met that fiendish cultivator, the Supremacy told us to hurry back to the city. I didn't think too much about it and went back. I don't know what happened after that." Senior sister Shu. Zhusheng looked at her in disbelief, the anger on his face growing. If Supremacy had not sensed that fiendish cultivator and rushed over in time that day, the two of us would have died in his hands. I saw with my own eyes that the devil cultivator was indeed dead. How could it be fake? But I really didn't see it. Shu Yi whispered anxiously. "You saw it, not me. You're a disciple of Nameless Mountain, of course you're on their side. Who knows what happened after I left?" "You?" Zhusheng was even angrier. He said directly, "Senior sister, don't forget, you were the one who discovered that fiendish cultivator first. According to what you said, could it be that you have some connection with that fiendish cultivator too?" "I didn't." Shu Yi looked innocent, looking as if she was about to cry. Lone Moon's eyes darkened. He turned to look at Yulwan. "Sect Master, I wonder what exactly happened? Why does it involve that fiendish cultivator again?" Yulwan sighed, then took out a piece of broken jade stone and said in a low voice, "It's like this, we found this when we were searching Danchin Mountain." Lone Moon took a closer look. "Image recording stone?" "That's right." Yulwan nodded. In front of Danchin Mountain's Disciple Hall, there was originally a large piece of image recording stone, used to record images of disciples' daily cultivation. This is a fragment of that image recording stone. Inside it recorded an image of Danchin Mountain before it was blown up. With that said, he transferred a bit of spirit chi in. In the next second, a white light flashed out and slowly condensed into an image. Although it was only a corner of the image, one could faintly tell that it was the scene in front of Danshan Mountain's disciple hall. Only that there was no one on it now. In a short while, a black shadow suddenly appeared on it and disappeared in a flash. But one could tell that the other party was filled with evil qi, one look and one could tell that he was a fiendish cultivator, and that face. Zhongyi. Lone Moon was shocked. This person looked exactly the same as the person who was possessed by the earth demon outside Yuanyang City previously. Behind the disciple hall is junior brother Yin's cave abode. He was in seclusion then, so he did not go to watch the competition. Yu Luan explained, then kept the image recording stone in his hand. What sect master means is that you suspect that the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi did not die, and the incident at Danshan Mountain was also done by him. No wonder they asked about that fiendish cultivator the moment they arrived. Before Yu Luan could reply, the nascent soul-perfected one in the hall who was arguing earlier spoke first. That day when Zhong Yi was killed, only the four of you were present. Who knows if the one who died was that fiendish cultivator? This perfected one is. Lone Moon frowned. This is perfected Jing Yuan. Yu Luan explained. He and the fallen junior brother Yin had always been the closest. Lone Moon nodded before replying. That fiendish cultivator's corpse, we and perfected one Shu Yuan have examined it. It is indeed that fiendish cultivator. Yet Jing Yuan was still unconcerned and continued to say meaningfully, there are so many transfiguration techniques in the world, who knows if that corpse is real or fake. What's more, our sect's protective mountain array is also set up by supremacy. You're spouting nonsense. Zhou Shuming panicked, he seemed to be very angry. How am I spouting nonsense? Yet that Jing Yuan turned to look at I Ching and said, Supremacy I Ching, this matter concerns the death of two nascent soul elders. Please explain it clearly to us. How did that Zhong Yi die that day? And that fire seed of the frost dark fire on the fiendish cultivator, where is it now? Lone Moon's eyes narrowed, dark fire? He subconsciously turned to look at the obedient and innocent Shu Yi at the side. It seemed like before they came, she had done a lot of things. The dark fire has already been extinguished. I Ching answered. Extinguished? Everyone was shocked. I Ching nodded. That fire can burn souls, it doesn't belong to the mortal realm in the first place, it shouldn't be left. To be precise, if not for that earth demon, that fire wouldn't have appeared here at all. Burn souls. Everyone gasped, they didn't expect there to be such an deviant fire in the world. Instead Shu Yi's expression changed, she couldn't help but say, that's an deviant fire, supremacy can really bear to extinguish it? Senior Sister Shu's words are really laughable. Lone Moon laughed coldly, he finally saw what this Shu Yi was planning, she wanted to sow discord, make them become the fiendish cultivator's accomplices, and then reap the benefits at the same time. From what you mean, you suspect that we have some kind of deal with that fiendish cultivator? Not only did we hide that deviant fire, we even helped that fiendish cultivator fake his death, let him enter Guei sect to hurt people. This accusation was really laughable. Chapter 672. Once he said that, not only Yu Luan, other than that perfected Jing Yuan, all the other nascent soul elders' expressions changed. They did suspect that the fiendish cultivator was not dead, but they had no intention of pinning the crime on I Ching. After all, with the other party's ability, if he really wanted to deal with Guei sect, there was no need for him to conspire with the fiendish cultivator. Shu Yi, don't spout nonsense. Yu Luan immediately reprimanded him, hurriedly cupping his fists to explain, Uncle Master, please forgive us, we did not mean to suspect you. It's just that the appearance of this image is strange, we really cannot confirm whether the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi is dead or alive. He's dead. I Ching said with certainty, the soul was sent into the river of forgetfulness by him personally. But this image, Sect Master. Lone Moon said directly, I feel that perfected Jing Yuan is right, there are so many transfiguration techniques, who can be sure that the person in this image is the real one? Brother Lone Moon's words are very reasonable. Tian Yi's eyes lit up at the side, he immediately chimed in, maybe the person in the image recording stone is a fake image left by the other party on purpose to confuse us. Impossible. Shu Yi retorted subconsciously. Why is it impossible? Lone Moon laughed softly and said, don't tell me you have done in-depth research on that fiendish cultivator, that you can tell the truth with one look. Of course not. Shu Yi's face paled instantly, but he immediately recovered and said, I just saw that the person in this image was full of evil qi, I thought that he was definitely a fiendish cultivator, not like someone in human form, he should be the one who killed Uncle Master Yin. Evil Qi. Lone Moon emphasized this word. The expressions of the people in the hall changed as they suddenly thought of something. They looked at each other, and the suspicion in their hearts that Zhong Yi was still alive was mostly gone. Even the previously aggressive Jing Yuan's expression changed. One must know that the remnant in the ruins of Danshan Mountain was not evil Qi, but demonic Qi, different from this person in the image. In other words, the person who destroyed Danshan Mountain was not the person in this image at all. Now that you mention it, it is indeed suspicious. Shu Yuan said with some enlightenment. Such a big piece of image recording stone was broken, but only this piece of broken stone still recorded a trace of image, and it just happened to record the murderer's appearance. Thinking about it this way, it is indeed too strange. That's right. The other nascent soul elders also nodded. Maybe this was deliberately left behind by the other party to confuse us. Martial Uncle is truly thoughtful. We were the ones who were foolish. This murderer is indeed cunning. He must have been trapped in the sect and couldn't get out, so he came up with this method to divert attention. That's right. That person must still be in the sect. We have to speed up the investigation. Shu Yi looked at the people around her, and her face darkened. She couldn't help but hear the system broadcast on her. Host, what's going on? Why did they suddenly stop suspecting him? They haven't handed over the mystical flame yet. It's okay. Shu Yi, on the other hand, was not anxious at all. Instead, she had a look of confidence on her face. Our target was never them in the first place. We're just making preparations for what's about to happen and planting a seed of doubt in everyone's hearts. But the original owner's resentment? Don't worry. After tonight, the resentment value will return to normal. As she spoke, she glanced at the fumings with Shuming, her eyes full of schemes. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, was she finally starting to stir up trouble? But, could she not spoil things? Late at night, in 2 Bucks' little thatched cottage. Brother. Lone Moon, I finished practicing my sword techniques for today. I've been to the sword formation as well. Mental cultivation technique too. Then, did I miss anything? No. Then dare I ask Brother Lone Moon? He took a deep breath and said, what are you trying to do by barging into my room in the middle of the night? He really wanted to sleep. Lone Moon scanned the person on the bed and narrowed his eyes. Then he stepped forward and stretched out his hand. 2 Bucks will come. Take off your clothes. What? Shuming trembled and shrank towards the corner of the wall. He grabbed the clothes in front of his chest in horror. Brother. Lone Moon, what are you trying to do? Lone Moon frowned and said impatiently, cut the crap and take off your clothes. Or I'll do it. With that said, he went forward and grabbed him. Wait, Brother Lone Moon, calm down, you can't do this. Shuming was not feeling well. He shrank towards the corner and shouted, although we're friends and it's fine if we go overboard with our swords, but it's not good to do this in the middle of the night, right? I'm not that kind of person. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, instantly 2 pairs of suspicious eyes turned towards a certain someone. Shut up. Lone Moon's expression darkened. What nonsense are you spouting? Shuming actually broke free from his grip and turned to glare at the master and disciple. What are you looking at? Hurry up and help. No. They wanted to know what he was like normally? Lone Moon was just about to conjure a seal when Shuming shouted again. Brother Lone Moon, believe me, although I rejected senior sister Shu, I really only like girls like Miss Shen. He had just finished speaking when a streak of sword chi flew out from Lone Moon's side and instantly sent the person who was desperately shrinking towards the corner to the wall. With a bam, he sank deep into the wall. Little bitch, you've been coveting my master indeed. Lone Moon turned and glanced at the furious I Ching. Wouldn't it have been better if he had done it earlier? He rolled his eyes and then went forward to dig the fainted person out of the hole in the wall. He tore open Shuming's shirt and took a closer look. Indeed, there was a black pattern mark on the back of his waist. Demonic chi could be faintly seen flowing inside, but it was blocked by something and did not emit any aura. There is indeed. Lone Moon's expression darkened and he looked up at the two. Seems like we guessed almost right. Shu Yi wants to frame Shuming for the matter of the fiendish cultivator, and she probably knows about what happened at Danshan Mountain. Maybe it has something to do with her. The special energy on this demonic chi should be from that system. That's why even we can't sense it. I Ching said in a low voice. It's not difficult to get rid of this demonic chi, but I'm afraid it will alert the enemy and let that system sense something. Lone Moon took a closer look and his expression darkened. But this demonic chi has already been planted and will explode in less than 3 days. If we don't get rid of it in time, I'm afraid it will affect $2 cultivation. That Shu Yi's motive was to let everyone see Wuxia's demonic chi explode. When everyone was watching, he wouldn't be able to explain himself even if he had 10,000 mouths. This is something from the system. We can't get rid of it directly, but we can't not get rid of it either. What should we do now? Why don't? Shining suddenly spoke up. We get a system too. Lone Moon, I Ching, that's right, don't they have a system too? Far away in the invincible heavenly palace, someone faintly felt a chill in his knees. Chapter 673. As time was of the essence, Lone Moon did not contact I Ching this time. Instead, he looked at I Ching and said, "Chef, open the door." I Ching did not delay and immediately conjured a seal to open the realm gate. Almost instantly, a white light flashed in front of him and a figure appeared in the room. Dressed in black, full of immortal chi, his head was lowered with a look of regret and grievance. In his hands he was still tightly hugging a brand new washboard. He seemed to have not reacted at all and had already changed the venue. He opened his mouth and said loudly, "Little you, I'm really wrong. It's all because Little Black dragged me out to drink. I didn't mean to not come back for the whole night." With that said, he put down the washboard and knelt down. That was very straightforward. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Air. Shouldn't they find another time to pull people over? Little you, it's really all Little Black's fault. He was the one who dragged me out to drink. He even said that senior sister Little Red had other demons and that he was sad. I was just being soft-hearted. Who knew that I would drink too much? Feng Ying was crying and snot. Seeing that there was no reply from the other party, he then raised his head. Little you, I'm really wrong? Holy shit. Feng Ying then saw the 3 people in front of him clearly and stood up abruptly. Why is it you guys? Ding discovered Big Boss, please greet Big Boss. He did not have time to be shocked. In the next moment, a familiar voice rang in his ears. His legs turned to jelly and he knelt down again. His movement was so big that the entire washboard made a loud bang. Yet that washboard seemed to be a Dharma artifact. Ow! Feng Ying felt a piercing pain from his knees. It was so painful that he crawled down and his face was almost purple. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, what a polite system. Feng Ying gritted his teeth and roared. This system that went crazy at the sight of Shining, how many more times was it going to trick him? Go, Feng Ying. Lone Moon could not bear to see him like this. He went forward to help him up. Are you all right? Feng Ying took a deep breath and stood up while rubbing his seemingly broken knees. Do I look good to you? Sit down first. Lone Moon had no choice but to carry her to a chair at the side and sit down. Didn't the 3 of you say you were going to descend? Why did you suddenly come back? Feng Ying glared at them in dissatisfaction. What are you doing here at Little Yu's place? Wait, where was Little Yu? Where are we? He looked around and realized that this was not Xiao Yu's room, but an unfamiliar place. On the bed next to him, there was an unfamiliar man who seemed to have fainted. Who is this? Don't tell me, you guys just robbed him? With Lone Moon's wealth, that shouldn't be the case. This is the lower realm. Lone Moon explained. What? His expression changed. Why did you drag me here? It's like this. Lone Moon said directly. I pulled you over because there's something urgent I need your help with. What urgent matter? Is it as urgent as mine? He seemed to have thought of something and shook his head. No, hurry and send me back. Little you will be worried if she sees me disappear suddenly. He had not finished admitting his mistake. Moreover, if the 3 of you can't solve it, how can I? Ding. Help others mission. Do not, absolutely, and must agree to the Big Boss's request. Holy shit. Feng Ying cursed. You stupid system, whose house do you belong to? Ding. Additional condition, if the mission fails, the punishment mechanism will be activated. Feng Ying. Son of AB***. Shining, what a good system. Cough. Although he could not hear it, Lone Moon could guess what had happened when he saw Feng Ying's irritated look. He stepped forward and said, well, to be precise, we're looking for the system in your body for help. He turned and pointed at $2 who was still unconscious on the bed. There's a demonic chi locked in this person's body, and the energy that locked the demonic chi is similar to the system. That's why I pulled you down to take a look. Demonic chi. Feng Ying was stunned. Isn't that easy to solve? It was just a trace of demonic chi, not to mention the three of them, even he could easily get rid of it. The thing that locked the demonic chi is a little special. Lone Moon frowned. That's why we can't get rid of it by force. Feng Ying looked at them in confusion, then stood up and limped towards the bed. Ding. Activating automatic scanning function. Checking, discovered system space lock program, valid for 3 days, current remaining time. 65 hours, 45 minutes and 7 seconds. Gradually losing effectiveness. After losing effectiveness, the item locked in the space will infect the host. What do you mean? Feng Ying did not understand. Shen Ying, who was the only one at the side who heard the system's voice, suddenly said, "Can we bypass the program and release the demonic chi inside without breaking the lock?" Ding. Host, please explain in detail to the big boss the advantages and disadvantages of the space lock technology, as well as the feasible operation method. What? Feng Ying looked confused, obviously not understanding at all. What the hell are you doing, system? How would he know all this? He had never heard of it. Ding. The system does not have a physical body, it cannot be used directly on a physical body, it can only be operated by the host. How would I know how? I'll give you a physical body. Before Feng Ying could finish, Shen Ying suddenly interrupted. With a turn of her hand, a translucent blue cube instantly appeared in her hand. Come out. Feng Ying was stunned, he suddenly felt an ecstasy that did not belong to him appear in his mind. His hand uncontrollably placed on that small cube, he faintly felt something being stripped out of his body. In the next moment, that blue cube suddenly emitted a burst of blue light. On the originally translucent cube, rows of strange characters that he could not understand flashed. It looked like a code. After a while, it disappeared without a trace. Then 2 cartoon-like eyes appeared on the cube, they were even blinking excitedly. That's great, the system finally has a physical body. Thank you, big boss, thank you. A crisp voice sounded in the room instantly. This time not only Shen Ying and Feng Ying but Lone Moon and I Ching also heard it. System you. Feng Ying's eyes widened, he looked in disbelief at that little cube that was blinking its eyes. I have a physical body, host. Quick, look, the body that big boss has given me. As it spoke, it even flew excitedly, circling Feng Ying as if showing off. As if it was the first time he saw a moving system, Feng Ying looked at the cube in front of him blankly for a while, then sighed, his face full of shock. Sigh. I really didn't expect that, system, you're actually a box spirit. System, Shen Ying, instantly hit by an arrow. You're the box spirit, your whole family are box spirits. What's wrong with the box? Did the box offend you? For all, Lone Moon glanced at a certain foodie who turned into a box the moment he landed, then went forward to interrupt Feng Ying, who was courting death. Alright, Feng Ying. You can go back first, once we're done we'll send the system back to you. I Ching, who was at the side, also reacted. Remember to bring your Dharma artifact. As he spoke, he picked up the washboard Dharma artifact on the ground, stuffed it back into Feng Ying's hand and opened the realm gate. Wait, you guys. Before Feng Ying could finish his sentence, he was pushed in by the 2 of them. F***CK. You inhumane bastards. What did you say? Suddenly, a familiar female voice rang in his ear, with a hint of coldness. Only then did Feng Ying realize that he was already back in the heavenly palace. Standing in front of him was a furious roasted chicken gal. His whole body instantly trembled. Now little you. I'm not talking about you, I was just pulled down to the lower realm. Get lost. Chinyu directly kicked him out and slammed the door shut. Little you, listen to my explanation. Crazily scratching the door, you can't cheat people like this. Chapter 674. System, can you release his demonic chi now? Lone Moon pointed at 2 bucks Swa on the bed and turned to look at the cube. Of course. The transparent cube of the system flashed an OK icon. Now that it had a physical body, even the way it spoke became more human-like, and it even came with its own emoticons. The seal on his body is a very low-level space technology, there are many loopholes, you can directly enter from the back door to release it. As it spoke, it flew directly above 2 bucks Swa. A moment later, the entire cube emitted a white light and swept towards the back of his waist, where the demonic chi was sealed. In a short while, a string of code-like characters flashed on 2 bucks Swa's body, traces of moving black gas floated out of his body. I Ching immediately conjured a seal, the demonic chi seemed to be drawn out by something, gathering continuously in his palm. In less than half a minute, it gathered into a ball the size of a wash basin. Until all the demonic chi was extracted, I Ching then summoned the true phoenix fire, burning the demonic chi completely. Lone Moon frowned. This ball of demonic chi was nothing to demons. Even if ordinary immortals were to be infected, they would probably be able to get rid of it after some time. But to mortals, especially those with low-level foundation establishment cultivation like $2, even if they didn't die, they would probably be turned into demons. Shu Yi's move was really quite ruthless. He wanted $2 to have no place among the orthodox cultivators, and completely become a fiendish cultivator. Reporting to Big Boss, all the items in the space seal have been exported. The system retracted the white light, circling around Shining as if it was asking for credit. Lone Moon released his divine perception to check, and found that the special energy was indeed still on $2, but there was no demonic chi aura. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief, thinking back to what the system said just now. He could not help but ask, "System, what did you mean by the seal on his body is very low level?" This seal is the most basic seal. When this system left the factory, it was basically already obsolete. Lone Moon's eyes lit up. You mean you are more advanced than this system that set up the seal? A system with this seal on it, the version should indeed be lower than this system. The system replied in a serious manner. There was still no change in its tone, but the transparent box had already begun to release a number of proud little flowers. Then can you make the other party's system break away from the host's binding? Lone Moon rejoiced. If the parenting system could deal with 001, they would save a lot of trouble. They wouldn't have to wait for it to escape from this plane. Theoretically, yes. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look, their expressions filled with joy. Shining, who had been nibbling on her fruit at the side, suddenly paused and looked thoughtfully at the little cube. At the bottom right of this floating peak, there's a system called 001, can you catch it? Lone Moon turned and pointed outside the window. CAH-12 Auxiliary System, pleased to be at your service. After saying that, the system flew directly to the window, and the entire blue box began to emit white light again. Ding. Activating AOE scan, target detected. Confirming data number 001, preparing to hack backend, chaos, warning. The system's blue box suddenly trembled. On the square, which originally had a pair of small eyes, all kinds of messy codes instantly began to appear crazily. Even the system's voice began to become unstable. It sounded like it was stuck. More importantly, something was about to break away from the square. What's going on? Lone Moon and I Ching's expressions changed. It couldn't have crashed after just one scan, could it? Shining, who was at the side, took a step forward. She reached out and tapped on some part of the blue box. Instantly, a light screen popped out. Shining turned and stuffed the fruit into her mouth. Her hands tapped on the light screen for a while at lightning speed. In less than a moment, the messy codes on the system's blue square cleared up. A lock symbol flashed. The white light on the square dimmed and there was no sound. Is this system all right? Lone Moon asked anxiously. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like something had gone wrong. What was that just now? Shining stopped. The light screen disappeared instantly. She then took the fruit out of her mouth and took a bite. It's fine. It just hit the firewall. This thing has a firewall? What happened to the advanced system? Just as he was thinking about it, a pair of cartoon eyes appeared on the dimmed blue square. It blinked twice as if it had just been rebooted. But in the next moment, the entire system suddenly let out a series of beeping alarms. Warning. Discovered stealing consciousness and rebelling against the system. Special Class Serious Violation. Special Class Serious Violation. Report to the Interstellar Court immediately. Report immediately. Connection to the star web failed. Continue connecting. The system seemed to have crashed. The whole square started scurrying around the room. From time to time it would even hit the wall a few times. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, what was going on? Was this system crazy? Lone Moon could not help but reach out and grab the system that was still hitting the wall. What's wrong with this system? Is it infected with a virus? The system's cartoon eyes blinked twice. As if it had just regained its senses, a series of exclamation marks appeared on the transparent square. It said hurriedly, Big Boss, that system stole the consciousness of a living being and fused it to form its own consciousness. This is a serious violation of the basic rules of the system. Please whip it. I got it. Shining replied. The system froze for a moment. It blinked twice. Lone Moon and I Ching, on the other hand, looked confused. What do you mean? What's stealing? When we systems are born, we are just a string of data. It is very difficult for us to develop our own consciousness. Especially for a basic system like the other party, there is basically no possibility of it being born. The system then explained anxiously. But I just detected that the other party's system has fused with a body of consciousness, turning it into a new system that can think independently. What body of consciousness? The two still did not understand. A living being. Shining said. You mean Shui? Lone Moon was stunned. Not just her. Shining continued to explain. It's 001. What do you mean? Lone Moon did not react for a moment. He stared blankly. A moment later, his eyes widened. You mean, other than Shui, the system itself has fused with another soul? Yes. Shining nodded. Otherwise, what do you think its purpose is in invading the various worlds? Isn't it to cheat other people's primary souls? He blurted out. If that's the case, then why did it let Shui go? Don't forget that although Shui was an intruder, she was also a soul. The rebellious system maintains its own independent consciousness by plundering and devouring living beings. The system continued to explain. But the living beings are different. There will be a certain rejection reaction. The living beings that devour living beings will be used up one day, and it takes a certain amount of time for them to fuse. So, Shui is actually that system's reserve food. Lone Moon's eyes widened. Chapter 675. You can think of it that way. The system blinked. A moment later it continued, and I detected that the other party is only a subsystem. The main program is not in this plane. The main program's version should be higher than this system's. That's why the invasion was unsuccessful. What? Lone Moon was shocked. There's a main program behind that system? Yes. The system answered with certainty. Lone Moon felt that this was a little too much information. He took some time to sort it out. That means, the primary soul that 001 invaded this world to take away was actually for the main program. And Shui was prepared by the system for itself. It was just waiting for the original soul to lose its effect before eating her. This meant that this system was really not wasteful at all. First, it coaxed the host to do some mission. Then, it went to different worlds to cheat other people's primary souls. Once it was done using them, it ate them up. It was no wonder that Lone Moon felt that something was off. Shining was right. If the purpose of these so-called systems was to capture souls, then, why did they only let their own host go? She was a soul too. Could it be that different souls had different tastes? Did they dislike the host for being cumin-flavored? Yet Shui did not seem to notice such a simple logic at all. She still trusted the 001 system wholeheartedly. She kept working hard to help it complete the so-called mission. She even thought herself righteous. Yet she did not know that she was just the other party's reserve food. For a moment he did not know if he should sympathize with Shui. There was such a huge commotion just now. Could the other party have already noticed the parenting system? Lone Moon thought of this and glanced at the little blue cube. No. Shining answered. I've already deleted all traces of it. It can't be found. That's good. However, it looked like their plan to use the parenting system to chase the other party out would not work. They had to wait for the other party to leave this plane before they acted. Now that Shui had secretly sealed demonic chi in Wuxia's body, she would act soon. They just had to wait. Lone Moon's guess was right. Indeed, not long after, in just 2 days, Shui began to act. These 2 days the sect sealed off the mountain. They searched everywhere but still could not find the person who killed Elder Yin. No one found any traces of a fiendish cultivator. Everyone began to suspect that perhaps that person had really left Guiyi sect a long time ago. Early in the morning, Lone Moon and Wuxia were called to the main hall alone. There were more than 10 Golden Core and Foundation Establishment disciples inside. They all looked familiar. Shui was among them. Only Sect Master Yuluan and a few managing elders were in the hall. Continue the sect competition? Wuxia looked at the sect master in surprise. Wasn't it cancelled? Why do you suddenly want to continue? Even if it's cancelled, it can still be restored. Shui, who had arrived earlier than them, said directly, the Intersect Tournament is a grand event that is held once every 10 years in Guiyi sect. The results aren't out yet. Isn't it normal to continue the competition? Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. He looked at Yuluan and said, Sect Master, the murderer who murdered Elder Yin has not been found yet. If we continue with the previous competition, I'm afraid it will give the other party an opportunity. Yulwan frowned. How could he not know about this Dao? But Zhuo Shuming nodded as well. Brother Lone Moon is right. There are priorities. I think it's better to cancel the competition this time. Disciple nephew Zhuo, it's easy for you to say. Shui snorted. You're on Nameless Peak. You have a soul formation supremacy to guide you. Of course you're not anxious. But there are so many disciples in the sect who hope to stand out in the competition. They've cultivated hard for 10 years just for this moment. Especially for some outer sect disciples, it's not easy for them to cultivate. Now that the competition is cancelled just like that, wouldn't everyone's hard work go to waste? Disciples will be disappointed in the sect. Once she said that, the other disciples all nodded in agreement. But Zhuo Shuming wanted to say something. Shui interrupted him directly. As long as the sect is not opened, continuing the competition won't conflict with pursuing the killer. With that said, she deliberately glanced at Zhuo Shuming. Besides, the competition is already at the finals. It won't take much time. Disciple nephew Zhuo is afraid of losing. That's why you don't dare to continue the competition? Of course not. Zhuo Shuming retorted instinctively. That's good. Shui made a determined expression, as if she really just wanted to test her own strength. We cultivators shouldn't be afraid of any challenge. So what if there really is a fiendish cultivator? As long as he dares to appear, we won't be afraid to fight him. Well said. Once she finished speaking, a black figure suddenly appeared in the main hall. He had a hint of the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator. He looked at Shui and nodded in satisfaction. You're my disciple indeed. You should have such awareness. Master. Shuyi's face lit up. The person who came was Tianji, who hadn't appeared for a long time after he was humiliated by Yi Qing. In just a few short years, his cultivation seemed to have improved once again. Greetings, Uncle Master Tianji. Yu Luan's expression stiffened. As if recalling something, a trace of helplessness flashed across his face. Together with the other elders behind him, he stepped forward and bowed. All the disciples also bowed. Tianji responded coldly. His gaze swept across Lone Moon and Zhuo Shuming in the crowd. His expression stiffened. As if recalling something, he immediately shifted his gaze and looked at Yu Luan. Didn't you say that the competition will continue? Why hasn't it started yet? A few days ago, I was in seclusion and couldn't participate. This time I've come out. I want to see who dares to bully my disciple. With that said, he released a hint of suppressive force towards Lone Moon and Zhuo Shuming. Lone Moon was already prepared. Before the other party's suppressive force swept over them, it dissipated. The two of them didn't react at all. Tianji frowned. He didn't mind. He thought that the two of them had some Dharma treasure on them that could resist his suppressive force. Tianyi's expression darkened. Tianji's words made it sound like the competition wasn't fair because he didn't come the previous time. Yet the other party's status was higher. He could only sigh and step forward. Reporting to Uncle Master, I'm informing these disciples about this. I still need to make some preparations. The official competition might only be tomorrow. Why wait until tomorrow? Tianji interrupted him. It's just a competition. It's still early. Let's just carry it out in the afternoon. With that said, he didn't wait for the other party's reply. He pulled Shui up and said, Little E, follow Master back to the mountain. I'll check on your cultivation situation. Yes, Master. With that said, the two of them walked out the door. Uncle Master. Yuan seemed to want to say something. After 2 steps, the other party was already gone. He could only sigh. He turned back to look at the elders who were also looking bitter. He smiled bitterly. He didn't agree to continue with the competition. It was true that the competition was a chance for the inner and outer sect disciples to perform. It wasn't that there weren't any dark horses. But the competition was already at the finals. Those who were left were basically the elite disciples of each peak. Those who had to perform had already performed. Even if there were any dark horses, everyone had seen it. Actually, it didn't matter much who was the champion. So when the competition was stopped, they didn't think much of it. It was more important to track down the fiendish cultivator. Yet they met someone serious. Uncle Master Tianji just came out of seclusion. When he heard about this, he insisted on continuing the competition to determine the winner. Yet they couldn't do anything about it. Wasn't that causing trouble? Yuan sighed. He could only give some instructions to the disciples. He asked everyone to go back and prepare. The competition would continue in the afternoon. Lone Moon glanced at Zhuo Shuming, who didn't seem to notice anything. His eyes narrowed. He finally understood Shu Yi's plan. It seemed like not only did she want Zhuo Shuming to become a fiendish cultivator, she also wanted him to lose in front of everyone. She calculated the time. She wanted Zhuo Shuming to release his demonic qi during the competition. That way, even if I Ching was a soul formation supremacy, he wouldn't be able to defend Zhuo Shuming publicly. Otherwise, he would be in cahoots with the fiendish cultivator. Needless to say, this move was indeed ruthless. But this Tianji. Chapter 676. Although Yu Luan was a little unhappy about continuing the competition, he still had the motivation to take action. In just one morning he said he would continue the competition, and it really started on time. Lone Moon and the others, on the other hand, because of lunch, they went later. When they arrived on the stage of the competition, all the elders were already there. Tianji was also sitting at the highest position, but Tianyi's technical geek fanboy was not here. Thinking that he had just bought a batch of spirit herbs from Nameless Mountain, he was probably refining pills again. I Ching flew directly to the stage, looked at the two empty seats in the middle. He habitually turned his body to let Shining sit down, then turned back to look at Father Nyo behind him. He seemed to hesitate for a moment. After a while, he sat down on the only empty seat with no qualms. Lone Moon, son of AB***. Although with his current status he really should not sit down, but what the hell was chef's, anyway? This month's food allowance has already been collected. Look. He was inexplicably unhappy. Tianji turned to look at them as if recalling something. His expression twisted for a moment, then immediately recovered. He turned his head away as if nothing had happened. But I Ching looked at him, his expression darkening. He subconsciously sent a voice transmission. His body, the demonic qi is gone. Lone Moon directly said, I discovered it in the main hall this morning. The demonic qi on his body is gone. I Ching's expression darkened even more. Could they have guessed wrong? Previously, when the protective mountain array was suddenly activated, they had guessed that the person who was hiding in the sect and could not be found, and the person who killed Elderine, could be Tianji. He had imprisoned Zhong Yi for so many years. He had been in contact with that earth demon for too long. Even if he was a soul formation cultivator, it was impossible for him to not be affected at all. And when they first met him, there were already signs of him turning into a demon, but Shu Yi used the system to suppress it. So, the first person they suspected was him. But that day, Chef specially used his divine perception to search, but did not find demonic qi on his body. Until later, when they saw the system's method of sealing demonic qi, they thought that he was the same, long turned into a demon, only his demonic qi was sealed by the system. But now, looking at him, his body was clean, there was no trace of demonic qi, nor did it look like it was concealed by the system. He looked like an ordinary soul formation cultivator, which was strange. If he did not turn into a demon, then where did the demonic qi that Shu Yi sealed in Zhuo Shuming's body come from? Before they had time to think about it, the competition below had already begun. One side of the arena was filled with pill furnaces. More than 10 disciples were already hugging spirit herbs and refining pills. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with the fragrance of pills, and the smoke became hazy. Compared to this side, the other side of the arena was much simpler and calmer. Originally, only Zhuo Shuming and Shu Yi's battle for the title of Chief Charm was left in the spell competition. Now that the competition continued, it naturally only required the two of them to fight. Shu Yi was already waiting outside the arena. She glanced sharply at Zhuo Shuming, who was walking over, and did not look like she wanted to acknowledge him. Zhuo, on the other hand, was as naive and sweet as ever. He greeted the other party with a warm smile. Uncle Master Shu. Martial nephew Zhuo. Perhaps because he felt that victory was in his grasp, Shu Yi had a rare good expression on his face. It seems that we have to fight today to determine the winner. Uncle Master Shu, what are you saying? I've always admired your cultivation, Zhuo Shuming replied seriously. To be honest, he might not be able to defeat her. After all, there was a huge gap between them. But Shu Yi's expression darkened. Thinking of the past, the hatred in her eyes deepened. Are you mocking me? No. Zhuo Shuming was stunned. He hurriedly explained, I'm being sincere. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're a sword cultivator. Shu Yi snorted. She took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. In a low voice she said, From today onwards, I want everyone to know that you've lost to me. He didn't think that way. Uncle Master Shu, do you have some misunderstanding about me? He looked like he wanted to explain to her clearly. Misunderstanding? Shu Yi laughed coldly and glared at him. The disdain on her face was overflowing. She said meaningfully, "There's no misunderstanding. After today, everything will be clear. But if I've done anything wrong, I hope." He still wanted to say something. "Say no more." But Shu Yi completely lost interest in talking. She glanced at him and said, "If there's any problem, we'll fight." "Uncle Master Shu, you don't believe me?" He faltered. "We cultivators have always judged right and wrong based on our cultivation." She turned her hand and directly summoned a spirit sword. Her gaze was cold. She said threateningly, "You don't have to say any more. If you're capable, win against the sword in my hand. Why do you have to pretend to be a gorilla and talk so much nonsense? Cultivation is something that goes against the heavens. No matter how beautiful your words are, it can't compare to the fact that your cultivation is half a level higher. I only believe in the sword in my hand. No matter what kind of demons and monsters you are, I'll kill them all. Wherever the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Come and fight." With that said, she glared at him coldly and directly flew up to the stage. Xuesheng's eyes widened. He stood rooted to the ground in shock. As if he had been shocked, he did not move for a long time. Until a junior brother beside him could not help but remind him that it was time for him to go up. Xuesheng then turned and slowly walked up to the stage. He looked like he had been frightened. He was still in a daze. He frowned and muttered something softly. The stage had already announced the start of the competition. "Please enlighten me." Shu Yi bowed according to the procedure. She gripped the sword in her hand tightly and pointed to the opposite side. Xuesheng did not move. He looked up at Shu Yi in a daze. He did not even summon his spirit sword. It was as if he was really frightened by the words the other party said before going up to the stage. Shu Yi also did not care about his abnormal behavior. She directly activated her spirit chi and flew towards the other party with her sword. Xuesheng remained rooted to the ground. He stared at the other party's sword coming towards him. It was getting closer and closer. It looked like it was about to pierce his body. It was as if he had just woken up from a dream. His eyes widened and he shouted, "I understand now." Suddenly, a huge wave of spirit chi exploded from his body. The surrounding spirit chi instantly became chaotic. The surging spirit pressure directly caused the sword in Shu Yi's hand to fly out of his hand. All the spectating disciples were stunned. Yet Xuesheng, who was in the middle, was still excitedly muttering, "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear." Well said. He had thought wrongly. In the past, he had been beaten too badly by Brother Lone Moon. The moment he held his sword, he had the thought of retreating. But a sword cultivator was a sword. There were no regrets when the sword was used. He did not have time to think too much. If he had been thinking about losing from the beginning and was afraid of the slightest thing, how could he still be considered a sword cultivator? With a sword in hand, he could just cut it. Why think so much? Xuesheng felt his heart relax. It was as if the things that had been troubling him all this while had disappeared. He had finally found the opportunity that he had been looking for. In an instant, large amounts of spirit chi suddenly began to gather in Xuesheng's direction. More and more spirit chi gathered. A strong wind blew and the sky darkened. "This is..." Yulwan stood up abruptly. He blurted, "He's going to form his core." Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Winky Face a natural nemesis. He lived up to his name. She felt like she could hear someone vomiting blood. Chapter 677. Yulwan had already flown down and stopped the competition, pulling Xuesheng. "Quick. Focus and focus on forming your core." "Core formation?" Xuesheng faltered, looking completely clueless about what was going on. "That's right." Yulwan nodded excitedly. He didn't expect that there would be such a surprise in this competition. "Hurry and sit down." Lone Moon also flew down and looked up at the darkening sky, reminding loudly, "Your lightning tribulation is coming." Oh. Xuesheng finally reacted. Just as he was about to sit down, he seemed to recall something and turned to look at Shu Yi, who was already in a daze, stepping forward agitatedly to hold her hand, revealing an extremely excited smile. Thank you, senior sister Shu, for enlightening me." Swoosh, the sound of a knife stabbing could be heard. But the more he spoke, the more agitated he became, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Senior sister is indeed a genius. I will always remember senior sister's guidance." Swoosh swoosh, another knife. "Right?" He suddenly turned to look at the disciple who was hosting the competition below the stage and said, I am willing to admit defeat in this competition. Senior Sister Shu's comprehension is indeed above mine. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, 3 knives in a row. Zhuosheng then seemed to have settled something on his mind, turning to sit in the center of the arena and meditating to form his core. He closed his eyes, not daring to add another sentence. Senior Sister Shu, you're really a good person. Shu E. The 3 spectators. Why did he suddenly feel a little sympathy for Shu E? Indeed, her originally dark expression instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Her eyes seemed to have thousands of knives stabbing outwards at the same time. She was like a balloon that was being blown up, looking like it was about to explode. As the sect master, Yu Luan had already started to clear the arena. Zhuosheng's lightning tribulation came too quickly. He could only form his core on the spot. Fortunately, this was the martial arts arena, it was just right. Hence he hurriedly got all the spectating disciples to retreat 100 meters away. Even the disciples who were already in the midst of pill refinement next door stopped, in case they were accidentally injured by the lightning tribulation. He cleared the area as fast as he could. Tianji flew down from above as well. He pulled Shu Yi, who had been standing there in a daze. He even comforted her out of goodwill. Although this battle was an accident, little E, don't worry. You are the undisputed champion. Shu Yi's face contorted in an instant. The string in his mind snapped. F***ck off the head of the pack. She didn't do it for the championship, she did it for... That's right. She wanted to ruin his reputation and turn him into a stray dog that everyone wanted to beat. Her gaze sharpened, and only then did she remember her goal. She began to frantically urge the system, quick. System, let his demonic energy explode. Now. But host, there are still 20 minutes before the lockdown expires. Who cares about the lockdown time now? Shu Yi felt a lump in her throat, stifling her heart. If we wait any longer, he's going to form his gold core. Hurry, remove the seal and release the devil aura. Alright, host. Before 001 could finish his words, the first lightning tribulation had already smashed down. Then there were a few rumbling sounds, one after another, illuminating the night sky that was already completely dark. But Zhuosheng's expression did not change. Apart from the fact that his dermic robes were a little yellow from the lightning strikes, there were no serious injuries on his body. Compared to the last time Shu Yi went through the tribulation, he was many times better. He was a sword cultivator in the first place. The sword chi on his body could automatically resist the lightning tribulation. In addition, he was used to being beaten up by Lone Moon for so many years. Naturally, his body's quality had improved. The golden core lightning tribulation was indeed nothing to him. Even the sect master Yu Luan and the elders who were watching could not help but look gratified. They looked at Zhuosheng with even more satisfaction. Shu Yi's expression darkened. What's going on? Why isn't the demonic chi on his body exploding? She asked loudly in her mind. I don't know either. The lockdown has indeed been lifted. Where's the demonic chi? Where did it go? The lightning was too powerful. It cleared away all the other energies. Perhaps even the demonic chi. What? Shu Yi's expression was one of disbelief. She felt like she was about to go crazy. You're saying that the demonic chi was dispersed by his lightning? That should be the case. Damn it. She had clearly planned everything. Why was it that every time, everything was different from what she had imagined? Could it be that Zhuosheng was really the son of the heavenly Tao? Was it useless no matter what she did? Ding. Original owner's resentment points plus 10. Current total value 75. Shu Yi only felt a ball of boundless anger surging up from the bottom of her heart. A never-before-felt hostility exploding from the bottom of her heart. Her hatred towards Zhuosheng instantly rose to a height that she had never felt before. She was filled with murderous intent, and the spirit chi on her body also faintly changed, as if it was beginning to fluctuate. Little E. Tianji, who was beside her, was the first to notice her abnormality. His expression changed instantly. He immediately conjured a seal to seal the spirit chi on her body. The spirit chi on Shu Yi's body dissipated and she fainted. Tianji's expression darkened. He turned to instruct Yu Luan. She was affected by the spiritual pressure. Her meridians were injured. I'll bring her back first. With that said, he carried her and flew back to Danxia Mountain. Yu Luan did not care much. He bowed and sent them off. Then he continued to look excitedly at Zhuosheng, who was going through the tribulation. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. He was right. This child was a good seedling. Father Nyo. I Ching looked at the two of them and sent a voice transmission to Lone Moon, who was beside him. I saw it. Lone Moon nodded. She almost turned into a demon just now. It seems that this invader's willpower is not much different from the original owner's. She had to say that Zhushuming was her natural nemesis. In her previous life, she angered someone into becoming a fiendish cultivator. In this life, it would be the same for the invader. She angered one to death. Naturally, she angered the second to death. Indeed, they were superfluous. Oh no, I sensed pure demonic chi from her body just now. I Ching suddenly said in a low voice. What? Lone Moon was shocked. She just turned into a demon. Why would there be pure demonic chi? Logically speaking, given her cultivation, even if she completely turned into a demon, she would only be a fiendish cultivator. What she emitted would only be evil chi. It's indeed demonic chi. I'm not sure where it came from. I Ching frowned. Because of the demonic seed in her body. Shining suddenly interrupted. What? The two of them were shocked. They turned to look at her. Didn't I tell you? Shining took a bite of her fruit and said slowly, the demonic seed in her master's body was transferred to the invader. I Ching, Lone Moon, for all, flips table. You didn't even mention about the demonic seed, all right. Chapter 678. Lone Moon contacted Yu Hong again and brought the Earth Demon back for questioning. He did not know if it was an illusion, but this little Earth Demon that did not even have a physical body seemed to be weaker than before after returning to the demon world. Lone Moon asked him to explain in detail what happened when he possessed a fiendish cultivator. Then he asked about the demonic seed. It turned out that when Tianji captured the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi back then, his motive was to obtain the hellfire in Zhong Yi's body. Yet he could not control it. Thus he had no choice but to keep him locked up. Zhong Yi had to endure the backlash of the dark fire while being tortured by Tianji. Naturally, he was filled with hatred and fear. In the end, he was still immortal, so he couldn't hold on any longer. But old demon was a demon. This little torture was nothing in his eyes, not to mention the other side did not know of his existence. Zhong Yi was, after all, the host that he was living in. He was a demon with a temper, and if he didn't do something about it, he would be letting down the characteristics of his race. Hence, in these 500 years, he hid in Zhong Yi's body. While enticing Zhong Yi to give him his life, he also secretly created a demonic seed and planted it in Tianji's body. When they first saw Tianji, they saw the demonic chi around him because of the demonic seed. However, after Shu Yi became his disciple, he couldn't just watch his backer disappear just like that, so he used the system to remove the demonic seed from Tianji's body and isolated it in his own body. Since it's already isolated, why is Shu Yi still affected? Lone Moon could not understand this point. If not for Tianji's timely interruption, Shu Yi would have become a demon. Could the system be so useless? That's because the system has lifted the lock. Shining answered casually as she tapped on the light screen in her hand. What blockade? Lone Moon paused and recalled the system's small broadcast just now. Didn't the system remove the seal on 2 bucks swa? Shining did not turn back. She continued to stare at the screen in front of her. She even picked up the parenting system and placed it in the middle of the screen. Then she said casually, Oh, I linked the 001 system's program to seal demonic seeds with the program to seal demonic chi. Lone Moon, I Ching, what? Last time? Could it be that time when the parenting system crashed into the firewall? Therefore, as long as he removed it, he would be able to remove both of them. Could it be that her actions back then had stealthily tricked everyone on the opposite side? Speaking of which, what did Boss Jing teach her back then? How did you find out that the demonic seed had been transferred to Shu Yi? Lone Moon pursed his lips and asked, unwilling to give up. Neither he nor Chef had noticed. I saw it. Shining replied. A moment later she added, that time on the boat. On a ship? On the spirit boat? They suddenly remembered that when they had returned from Yuanyang City, she had inexplicably appeared in front of Shu Yi and even scared him. At first he thought that she had just taken a wrong turn. After all, she had no sense of direction at all. He didn't expect that she had purposely followed him. He even found out about the demonic seed. Lone Moon couldn't help but glare at her. Would it kill you to tell us? And then? What are you doing now? He pointed at the screen around them. Ever since they returned, she had not stopped working on the screen. She did not even turn to look at them when she spoke. Updating. Shining pointed at the parenting system and replied. Updating? Lone Moon hesitated. He looked at the little square floating on the screen. Updating the parenting system? He took a closer look. Indeed, the little cartoon eye on the square had disappeared. In its place was a charging icon. It really was updating. Could it be? Master still wants the parenting system to force 001 out of the host's body? I Ching's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but ask. No. Shining finally stopped. She picked up a fruit and took a bite. The system said that it might be discovered by intruders if it goes out. It's too boring to stay in the house. So, I played some games for it. I Ching, Lone Moon, there's also Fight the Landlord. Xin Ying's eyes lit up. There are 3 of us. One around? Get lost. F** King retard. You would have to be blind to believe that this foodie would become so diligent. #convex, is Brother Lone Moon in? Suddenly a familiar male voice sounded from outside. It sounded a little anxious. Tianyi, what is he doing here? Lone Moon recognized the voice immediately. He turned and walked out. Brother Tianyi, today was not the day they agreed to gather spirit herbs. It's good that Brother Lone Moon is here. Tianyi's expression brightened and he immediately took a few quick steps forward to welcome him. His gaze swept across the room behind him and he pulled Lone Moon 2 steps away. Then, with some guilt, he said, To tell you the truth, I'm here for an urgent matter and would like to trouble you, brother. Lone Moon glanced at him. He could tell that he was hesitant. Coincidentally, he didn't want him to enter the house in case he saw the system playing games. He said, Let's go to the pavilion in front to talk. Tianyi's expression relaxed. He turned and walked to the pavilion in front. Brother Tianyi, feel free to speak your mind. Lone Moon immediately switched to business mode. He smiled and said, I'll help as much as I can. Tianyi glanced at him. The guilt in his eyes deepened. He sighed and said, Sigh. I have no choice. That's why I'm here to trouble you. Brother Lone Moon, you have a lot of friends. You're also very knowledgeable about spirit herbs. That's why I wanted to ask, do you know anyone who has 1,000-leaf spirit flower? Radish flower. Lone Moon blurted out in shock. 1,000-leaf spirit flower. Wasn't it the flower of the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit? Radish flower? The invincible sect's warehouse was full of them. What? Tianyi was stunned. What radish flower? Lone Moon coughed and corrected himself. Brother Tianyi, are you talking about the flower that the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit blooms? Brother Lone Moon has heard of it. Tianyi's expression lit up. He nodded repeatedly. Yes. That's the flower. I heard that this flower can help to form pills and increase the level of pills. But... He glanced at Tianyi. Brother Tianyi, you're a soul formation supremacy and a 10th level alchemist. Logically speaking, it shouldn't make a difference whether you have this 1,000-leaf spirit flower or not. Alchemists of his level should rarely fail in refining pills. Sigh, Brother Lone Moon, you don't know this. I don't want this flower to increase the level of pills. I want... He looked around cautiously. Then he specially set up an isolation array. Carefully he took out a tattered piece of paper. It looked like it had been there for a long time. Look at this and you'll understand. Lone Moon took the piece of paper and looked at it. He realized that it was a pill recipe. The words demon-breaking pill were written in big eye-catching words. Demon-breaking pill? He paused. Chapter 679. That's right. Tianyi nodded. All cultivators, especially those who are undergoing tribulations, are most afraid of developing mental demons. This demon-breaking pill is a 10th grade pill. It allows one to maintain a clear mind during the tribulations, helping one overcome his mental demons. But, one of the main ingredients in this pill recipe is the 1,000-leaf spirit flower. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He had heard of the demon-breaking pill before, but he had never heard that it required radish flowers. No, a 1,000-leaf spirit flower to refine. But there were differences in every small world. It was possible that the pill recipe was different. He did not look at the recipe in detail. Instead, he folded the pill recipe in his hands and returned it. Tianyi, on the other hand, was stunned. He had shown the recipe to Lone Moon because he wanted to share it with him. He did not think that Lone Moon would be so noble. He only looked at the name of the recipe and did not look at it in detail. He had no intention of taking advantage of Lone Moon at all. He was very touched. He had not misjudged Lone Moon. He was a good man. Brother Tianyi, do you want to ask me if I can find the 1,000-leaf spirit flower? Lone Moon asked. Yes. Tianyi nodded and said hopefully, Brother Lone Moon, do you have a way? Lone Moon did not answer him directly. Instead he changed the topic. Brother Tianyi, I see that your mind is clear. There are no signs of mental demons. Your disciples are not at the stage of tribulation yet. Why are you so anxious to refine the demon-breaking pill? Tianyi's expression changed. He seemed to have thought of something. Anger appeared in his eyes. Sigh. It's all because of junior brother Tianji that my Guiyi sect is implicated. Lone Moon narrowed his eyes. Why was he talking about Tianji again? This has something to do with supremacy Tianji? This has something to do with the recipe for the demon-breaking pill. Tianyi looked aggrieved as he sighed and said, 500 years ago junior brother Tianji was still a nascent soul cultivator. He and Supremacy Tengju of the Taiyan sect discovered an alchemy inheritance in a small mystic mirror. The recipe for this demon-breaking pill was one of the items in the inheritance. However, Supremacy Tengju is a talisman cultivator, the legacy of alchemy is useless to him, so the two sects agreed that this legacy will be handed over to Guiyi sect. He put away the exorcism pill recipe on the table and continued, from now on we have an agreement. Both sects will provide half of the spirit herbs for us to refine, and half of the pills we obtain will be given to Taiyan sect. Lone Moon nodded. That was fair. Although this legacy belonged to Guiyi sect, they would naturally be the ones to cultivate it. Moreover, they would each get half of the spirit herbs. Because junior brother Tianji was the one who found this legacy, he will naturally be the one to inherit it. Only he can refine some of the precious pills. Tianyi said slowly without much envy in his voice. That's why all these years Taiyan sect's pills have been refined by you. Originally, we agreed to train once every 10 years, and it's going to be the day of the transaction in 3 months. He didn't practice. Lone Moon was shocked. Yeah. He looked anxious. Junior brother Tianyi found Yuluan a few days ago and said that because he was in seclusion, he did not have time to refine the elixirs for trading. Yuluan had no choice but to find me. The more he spoke, the more anxious he became. This Taiyan sect is the #1 immortal sect. Although we've always been on good terms, anyone would be angry if they suddenly changed their mind about something that had already been agreed upon. It would affect the relationship between the two sections. Who knows, they might even accuse us of keeping the elixir legacy for ourselves. What's more, ever since Guiyi sect had Yi Qing, a soul formation sword cultivator, Taiyan sect had become increasingly wary of Guiyi sect. From time to time they would find fault with them. Now that they had found out about this, they had to fight to the death. Then, what's this exorcism pill? Yuluan heard that Supremacy Tengju has a disciple that he dotes on very much. That disciple used to be his nephew, but his brain was accidentally injured by a fiendish cultivator and he lost his mind. The exorcism pill can make one's heart clear and clear. Coincidentally, it can help him regain his consciousness. Moreover, this legacy was discovered by him and junior brother Tianji together. As long as he says the word, it doesn't matter if the pills are a little late. It's just that. He did not think that the exorcism pill would require 1,000-leaf spirit flowers. In the end, it was Tianji's fault again. Lone Moon recalled the pill recipe and continued asking, there's something I don't understand. Since Supremacy Tianji gave this recipe to you, it means that he had no intention of keeping it to himself. Although he obtained the legacy, why didn't he just let the disciples of the sect refine it together? Perhaps they would be able to make it in time. Why did he have to give it all to Tianji alone? Brother Lone Moon, there's something you don't know, Tianyi explained. Although there's nothing special about this recipe, I don't know why only junior brother Tianji can refine some of the pills in the legacy. It's the same for me. Even if I know the recipe, I still can't refine the pills I need. Lone Moon paused. That was strange. There was such a thing? Logically speaking, apart from some pill refining experience and techniques, the so-called legacy was mostly about various pill recipes. Tianyi was a 10th level alchemist. His techniques and experience were definitely not a problem. He even had the correct pill recipe. Why was it that only Tianji could refine the pills? Unless Tianji had some special method to refine the pills that no one else could do. And this method affected the success rate of the pills. There were only a few factors that affected the success rate of the pills. The first was the ingredients. The second was the technique. The third was the level of fire. Haha, what a coincidence. No wonder Tianji wanted to imprison that fiendish cultivator for so many years. So that's what his dark fire was for. Using deviant fire to refine pills was of course different from refining pills with normal fire. Brother Lone Moon, do you have any idea about this 1,000-leaf spirit flower? Tiani could not help but ask again. Lone Moon glanced at him. Of course he had an idea. He had a whole bunch of them in his storage bag. They were all from radish that he stuffed into Xinying's storage bag. But he could not take them out just like that. First of all, he could not explain their origins. Second, radish had become an immortal for a long time. It was no longer an ordinary vegetation spirit. Its flower was already a top-grade immortal herb. If he used it to refine pills in the lower realm, who knew what would happen? That was why he could not take it out directly. So he smiled politely and said, I can only help you find out about this. I've never really seen this thing before. Even you can't do anything about it? Tianyi's expression darkened. He looked listless. Lone Moon glanced at him. After some thought, he could not help but remind him, there are so many spirit herbs in the world. Why must Brother Tianyi use the 1,000-leaf spirit flower? According to what he knew, there was more than one way to refine the demon-breaking pill. He knew more than 10 different pill recipes. None of them required radish flower. Brother Lone Moon, you must be joking. He smiled bitterly. Apart from raising the grade of pills, the 1,000-leaf spirit flower is mainly because it is of the wood element. Its medicinal properties are mild and it has the effect of calming one's mind. That's why it can be used to refine the demon-breaking pill. But apart from raising the grade of pills, the 1,000-leaf spirit flower is not the only spirit herb that has the effect of calming one's mind. Chapter 680. But that's what the recipe says. Tianyi retorted subconsciously. The recipe only says that the demon-breaking pill needs the 1,000-leaf spirit flower, but it doesn't say that other spirit herbs can't produce the demon-breaking pill. Lone Moon pretended to guide him. What's more, be it the pill recipe or the legacy, weren't they all thought up by the predecessors? Since the predecessors could think of it, why should Brother Tianyi, as a 10th-level alchemist, be constrained by this? Tianyi faltered, his entire being stunned. As if he had never thought of it that way before, shock, confusion, excitement and many other complex emotions flashed across his face. Finally he looked eager to try. That's right. Why hadn't he thought of it that way? The pill recipe was also thought up by others. Why couldn't he think of it? Since there was no 1,000-leaf spirit flower, what harm was there in trying something else? If he succeeded, he might even be able to improve the demon-breaking pill recipe. He stood up abruptly as if he had thought of something. His face was full of excitement. Even the spirit chi around his body started to fluctuate. He said hurriedly, Thank you for the reminder, Brother Lone Moon. I have something to do. I have to leave first. With that said, he turned to leave the mountain. Just as he left the pavilion, he seemed to have thought of something and turned back at the last minute, taking out bottles of pills. Oh yes, I almost forgot about the proper business. I prepared these for Brother Lone Moon long ago. Take them. If it's not enough, feel free to look for me. He seemed to have thought of something and looked at Lone Moon with a hint of caution. Lone Moon faltered. He took a closer look at the pills. Golden condensation pills? Weren't these used for core formation? Why was he giving them to him? Although Wuxia is one step ahead of you. But in my heart, you are not inferior to anyone else. Given time, you will definitely surpass that fellow. With that said, he even made a fist to encourage him, then turned and flew away. Lone Moon, who was stuffed with a bunch of pills. He was afraid that Lone Moon would be upset when he saw Wuxia's core formation, so he specially brought these pills to comfort him? What the hell? Wuxia had successfully formed his core, and because of Shu Yi's words, he had a clear understanding of his sword Dao, and was even showing signs of developing sword intent. Even the sword chi around him became sharper and sharper. His cultivation speed was so fast that it was shocking. When he first joined Guiyi's sect, he was only a disciple at Qi Refinement Stage 7. In addition, he had 3 spirit roots, but in just a few years he was able to form his gold core. Even a genius with a heaven spirit root might not be able to achieve such a speed. Hence, Yuluan came looking for I Ching again, expressing his hope that he would take in more disciples to raise the overall combat standards of Guiyi's sect. Lone Moon had already thought of this, so he asked I Ching to agree. Anyway, he had already set up the sword array. There was no difference between throwing one person in and throwing a group of people in. The matter of choosing disciples was all handed over to Yuluan to choose as he saw fit. Anyway, Nameless Peak was big enough. Considering Chef's unreliable personality, he didn't want any disciples to rush up and see a certain someone who stayed in the kitchen all day to affect his image. Thus, Lone Moon set up an array at the last minute, dividing Nameless Peak into 2 parts. The few of them would still stay on the peak. The bottom of the peak would be given to the disciples who entered the peak. They could build their own residences wherever they wanted. As for the matter of teaching, he directly pushed it to Zhuoshiming. What he taught him back then he would teach the others. If they couldn't learn it, they could just throw them into the sword array and be tortured by it. Towards I Ching, decision, the sect master and the elders of the various peaks were very satisfied. Except for Tianyi. His heart ached for those spirit herbs. One must know that on Nameless Peak, there were spirit herbs everywhere. Once these disciples entered, those spirit herbs would have to be moved. Lone Moon and the others didn't think much of it. Instead, his heart ached so much that it bled. He delayed the matter of choosing disciples for a few months. He led the disciples of Danxia Mountain to rush day and night to buy all the spirit herbs. He spent money and effort to buy all the spirit herbs. Nameless Peak, which had always been quiet, was unprecedentedly lively. The entire Guiyi sect was bustling with activity. Whereas the few people in charge were so free that they could only count their spirit stones. Even Zhuoshiming made use of these few months to successfully consolidate his newly formed core cultivation. He even successfully passed the second level of the sword array and rose to the third level. When he came out, he felt like he was floating. The first thing he did was to discuss with Lone Moon. This time, I was able to form my core successfully because of Senior Sister Shu's guidance. Brother Lone Moon, do you think I should specially go and thank her? When is a suitable time to go? Lone Moon scanned him from head to toe and patted his shoulder with a conflicted expression. I say $2. Do you know what it means to leave a way out for others? Was he thinking that he didn't stab him enough last time and was in a hurry to stab him again? Zhuoshiming didn't understand what he meant. He said innocently, shouldn't I go? A moment later, he seemed to have thought of something and nodded hard. Brother Lone Moon is right. If I go just like that, it would be too insincere. I should prepare a generous gift. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Haha, as long as you're happy. Hopefully he wouldn't be beaten to death. Yet his eyes lit up. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. I must choose this gift well. It's a pity I don't know what Senior Sister Shu likes. He frowned. A moment later he said, oh yes, Lady Shin is also a girl. Why don't I go and ask her? She would definitely know. With that said, he turned and planned to go to the peak. Come back. Lone Moon reacted quickly and pulled him back. Why don't you grow a brain? Don't always hang around Shining if you have nothing to do. Why? He faltered. Nonsense. Are you blind? Can't you see that there's a vinegar bucket standing beside her? If you go to Shui, you'll at most be beaten to death. If you go to Shining, believe it or not, she'll make you wish you were dead. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at him and sighed. Do you think that Shining will give you any other suggestions apart from eating? If you go and ask her, she'll only make you prepare a Manchu Han imperial feast. Then what should I do? His expression was troubled. After thinking for a moment, he still didn't know what to give. He could only say, why don't I go and find out what Senior Sister Shu likes? Then I'll go and thank her. He really intended to go. Lone Moon's expression darkened. But he didn't say anything else. For all he knew, he might really be able to help and anger the invader out. But he didn't expect that before Zhuoshiming could think of a gift to thank her, Tianji would come knocking on his door first. What's more, he carried a sword and fought his way up. A mere golden core cultivator dares to plot against my disciple. Tianji's voice sounded before he arrived. The disciples who were practicing their swordplay at the foot of the mountain felt a strong gust of wind sweeping towards them. There were even several wind blades in the wind. They couldn't dodge in time and were instantly blown away. And those wind blades directly attacked Zhuoshiming, who was right in front. Chapter 681. Zhuoshiming faltered and instinctively raised his sword to defend himself, but he was suppressed by the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator and could not move at all. Those deadly wind blades were about to hit him. Lone Moon reached out to grab him and dodged in a flash. In the next moment, there was a loud rumbling sound as the wind blades smashed into the ground, leaving a few meters deep crater. The entire Nameless Peak trembled, and even the newly built platform for practicing swordsmanship was instantly turned into a pile of rubble. Lone Moon's expression darkened as he sent a voice transmission to Chef on the mountain peak while looking at the furious Tianji. Supremacy Tianji, why did you suddenly come and hurt my Nameless Peak disciple? Tianji became even angrier as he glared at Zhuoshiming. Hurt him? A despicable person like him, if I don't kill him today, I won't be able to vent my anger. With that said, he unleashed his suppressive force towards everyone. Lone Moon and Zhuoshiming were fine, but the people practicing here were all disciples who had just entered the peak. Many of them were rookies at the chi refinement stage. How could they withstand the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator? They all fell to their knees and spat out blood. Shit. Lone Moon was furious too, but he could not attack them directly. These disciples were about to collapse. An even stronger suppressive force suddenly came from above, pushing back Tianji's suppressive force. Chef arrived just in time. With a wave of his hand, a row of spirit swords flew towards Tianji. Tianji faltered and hurriedly dodged, but he could not do so in time. Half of his sleeve was cut in half. You. Tianji was furious. He looked up at I Ching, who suddenly appeared, his eyes burning. I Ching, are you protecting this evil creature? I Ching faltered and turned to Lone Moon questioningly. What was going on? Was this person crazy? Lone Moon shook his head, indicating that he was not sure either. Just as he was about to ask, Yulwan, who was on the main peak, also sensed the commotion and rushed over. The elders of the various peaks also rushed over. Even Tian Yi flew up. What's going on? Yulwan's face was filled with shock as he swept his gaze across the severely injured disciples on the ground and hurriedly called for some disciples to check on their injuries. He was both anxious and angry. One must know that these people were the most suitable seedlings for sword cultivation that he had carefully selected. Guiyi sect only had core cultivators, and their battle power had always been pitifully low. Therefore, when they were outside, it was inevitable that they would be treated as pushovers by other sections. It wasn't easy for a sword cultivator supremacy to come. He had long wanted to change the situation in the sect, but he didn't expect that the first batch of disciples would be injured in just a few days. Junior brother Tianji, why are you doing this? Tianyi was a man with a strong sense of collective honor. Naturally, he understood Yulwan's intentions. He looked up at Tianji. It was obvious that he was the one who made the first move. Today, I only want to kill that sinister and vicious little bastard. He pointed at Zhushuming and said coldly, you'd better not block me. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Zhushuming? Yulwan was stunned. When did Uncle Master Tianji have a feud with a mere Golden Core disciple? Uncle Master, what did this disciple do? Do you really want to do this? What did I do? Tianji snorted and glared daggers at Zhushuming. He said word by word, I also want to ask him, on the day of the competition, what did you do to little E? What made her become like that? Sui. Everyone was shocked. Thinking carefully, they indeed hadn't seen her for a long time. Seen your sister Shu? Zhushuming was also stunned. He asked with some concern, what happened to her? You still dare to ask what happened? Tianji's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ever since the competition, her condition has been worsening. Now her meridians are all broken and her golden core is showing signs of shattering. What? Little E is injured? Shu Yuan panicked. After all, she was his daughter. He would definitely be worried. No, I have to go and take a look. With that said, he left everyone behind and turned to fly away. Uncle Master Tianji, is there some misunderstanding? Yulwan asked. How long had it been since the competition? He didn't see anything wrong with her? There's no misunderstanding. Tianji raised his sword and pointed at Zhushuming. Little E was fine before, but after she fought with him, she has been unconscious ever since. If he didn't do anything, who else could it be? Everyone was taken aback and their expressions changed. Everyone had clearly seen what had happened in the competition that day. Zhushuming did not even make a move. He went through the tribulation and formed his core. What's more, Zhushuming's cultivation level was lower than his opponent's. Even if he wanted to do anything, he couldn't have done it in front of so many people. Uncle Master Tianji, we saw it with our own eyes. He didn't do anything. Yulwan explained. I think Uncle Master is too worried. Humph, he has never been on good terms with my disciple. What's more, little E kept calling out his name in anger when she was unconscious. I can't think of anyone else. Tianji refused to let the matter rest. He looked as if he would not rest until he killed Zhushuming. I must kill him today. With that said, he activated his spirit chi again and conjured thousands of icicles. He shot them towards Zhushuming, not caring if there was anyone else around. Uncle Master, Yulwan exclaimed. He wanted to save I Ching, but he could not move because of Tianji's suppressive aura. I Ching frowned. He released all the sword chi in his body. There was a series of clanging sounds. The icicles shattered and fell. The sword chi filled the air, forcing Tianji to retreat several steps. With a twist of his hand, A spirit sword appeared in I Ching's hand. With some impatience he said in a low voice, "If you want to fight, come at me. If you want to fight, hurry up." He had to rush back to cook. He was only halfway through cooking. "You." Tianji's expression contorted. "You seem to be really angry." He gripped the sword in his hand tightly. "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Yulwan's heart trembled. He rushed out. "Uncle Masters, please wait. It would be terrible if the two of them started fighting." Yulwan hurriedly advised, "Now is not the time to fight. Uncle Master Tianji, Shu Yi's condition is more important. Why don't we go and see what's wrong with her first? We can save her and figure out the reason." Tianji's expression darkened. He hesitated. After all, he had tried many ways to wake Shu Yi up. What more the others? "Uncle Master Tianyi has always been good at medicine. Why don't we let him take a look?" Yulwan immediately added. Tianyi nodded. Tianji glared at Zhusheng again. Then he kept his sword and turned to fly towards Danxia Mountain. Everyone looked at each other and flew down as well. Chapter 682. Danxia Peak was different from the other peaks. It was actually a double peak. Tianyi and Tianji were both on this peak. Although Tianyi was the peak lord, he and his disciples actually lived on the left side of the floating peak. Tianji lived on the right side. Because he had not accepted any other disciples apart from Shu Yi, the peak seemed a little deserted. At the peak of the mountain there was a single palace. Everyone followed Tianji to the peak and entered the palace. They headed straight for the back palace. Lone Moon and the others walked at the back. Just as they entered the inner palace, they suddenly stopped. "Chef, this aura." He subconsciously sent a voice transmission to the person beside him. I Ching nodded. "I see it too." Lone Moon frowned. "Let's go in and take a look first." He followed, but the deeper they went, the thicker the aura became. When they reached a room in the back palace, the entire courtyard was already filled with that aura. It was so thick that they could not breathe. Just as everyone was about to push the door open, "Wait!" Lone Moon called out. He stepped forward and pulled Yulwan back. I Ching also formed an array. White light flashed under his feet. A huge array appeared under their feet. A translucent shield rose up and surrounded all the elders. "This is..." Yulwan hesitated. Why did they suddenly set up a defensive array? Tianji, who was at the front, also turned to look at them. His expression turned cold. He glared at I Ching. "What are you doing?" I Ching ignored him. He only looked at everyone and explained in a low voice, "There's something else in the house." Everyone stared blankly at him. Before they could ask, Tianji panicked. With a furious expression he said, "I Ching, what do you mean by this? This is little Yi's room. Are you suspecting that I'm up to something?" I Ching ignored him. Instead, he directly summoned a spirit sword. "Take a look and you'll know." With that said, he waved his hand. "What are you doing?" Tianji was shocked. All he saw was a beam of sword chi flying in front of him. The next moment he heard a loud crash. A section of the room was cut off. The roof collapsed. "I Ching, you." Tianji was furious. Just as he was about to attack, he heard a loud bang. A figure was thrown out of the room and landed heavily in the courtyard. That person was covered in blood and had a weak aura. The robe he was wearing was somewhat familiar. "This is Elder Shu." An elder recognized the person on the ground and exclaimed, "Wasn't this Taoist Master Shu Yuan who was in a hurry to see his daughter? Why did it become like this?" Before they could be surprised, the next moment clouds of pitch-black gas suddenly surged out of the collapsed room in front of them, rushing toward them. Just as it was about to engulf everyone, the defensive formation under their feet lit up and instantly blocked the black gas outside. However, the black gas outside had already spread to the entire courtyard. Wherever the black gas passed through, the flowers in the courtyard instantly withered. Even the collapsed beams and tiles cracked and weathered inch by inch, turning into a pile of sand in an instant. "This is demonic energy," someone exclaimed. They finally recognized what the black chi was and felt a chill in their hearts. Fortunately, Supremacy I Ching had set up a defense array in advance. Otherwise, they would not be able to withstand the demonic chi even if it touched them. But why was there demonic energy here? "That's Senior Sister Shu Yi?" Zhusheng's eyes suddenly widened as he looked in front of him in disbelief. Everyone was stunned. They subconsciously looked up and realized that there was a person floating in the air amidst the thick demonic energy. She was wearing the Dharma robe of a personal disciple of Guiyi sect. It was Shu Yi whom Tianji had said was seriously injured and unconscious. However, her entire body was now enveloped in demonic qi. Her originally delicate and pretty face was now covered in black demonic runes like a spider web. Her eyes were crimson red as if she had lost her mind. Waves of black qi were continuously being emitted from her body. This demonic energy is coming from her body. Yuan was shocked, his face full of disbelief. There was more and more demonic energy around them. It seemed to be spreading towards the entire Guiyi sect. Little E. Tianji was also shocked. As if recalling something, a trace of guilt flashed across his face. He immediately flew out as if trying to stop the person in the air. Uncle Master, don't? Yuan wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Tianji had already rushed out. Almost at the same time, the Dharma robe on his body was corroded by the demonic energy. With a few sizzling sounds, his skin was burned. Tianji's expression changed. But he still rushed towards Shu Yi, wanting to stop her. Shu Yi suddenly raised her hand and waved. A wave of demonic energy shot towards Tianji. Instantly he was slapped back. It was obvious that she had not woken up yet. Lone Moon glanced at Chef. He was about to ask him to do it. Shu Yi's system was also anxious. It started to make a small announcement. Host. Hurry and wake up. Don't let the demonic energy consume your mind. Host. Host. Then there was a sizzling sound. A tiny bolt of lightning flashed across Shu Yi's body. Shu Yi's originally expressionless face contorted. A trace of pain flashed across her face. Her bloodshot eyes darkened. Slowly she regained consciousness. System? A trace of confusion flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. Before she could sort out the situation around her, she saw Wuxia in the array formation. Her pupils shrank. What happened during the competition flashed across her mind. Anger surged out of her. Her eyes lit up with red light again. Murderous intent filled the air. Wuxia. She gritted her teeth as she shouted his name. It was as if she wanted to eat him alive. Even the demonic energy around her suddenly increased. She waved her hand and directed the demonic energy around her to attack him. The demonic energy that had been moving around seemed to have received an order. It turned into thousands of black sharp blades and attacked the center. The defensive array beneath everyone's feet shattered, and their hearts went cold. Seeing that the black qi was about to surge towards them, Yi Qing turned his hand, and a ball of red flame burst out from his body, and rushed towards the demonic qi. There was a sizzling sound. The demonic qi dissipated as if it had met its natural enemy. The demonic qi retreated bit by bit. The entire courtyard was a fiery red. In less than 2 breaths' time, the demonic qi disappeared completely. It pounced towards the source of the flames floating in the air. Shu Yi instantly let out a scream, but found that he couldn't escape the flames at all. A piercing pain came from all over his body, and he didn't care whether others could hear him or not. He shouted madly, "System, save me!" Ding. Encountered an unknown error. Unable to defend against this kind of flames. Lonman's expression darkened. Yi Qing was the manager. Of course this intruder could not cut off his fire system. He hurriedly tugged at the person beside him to remind him, "Chef." The system had not left its host body yet. Only then did Chef retract his palm, and the flames around Shu Yi's body receded. Chapter 683. Little E. Tianji took the opportunity to fly out and catch the dying Shu Yi. But he did not stop and flew out on his sword. Uncle Master Tianji, Yuan reacted and was about to stop him when Tianji suddenly turned back and threw a Dharma artifact at him. But it was not aimed at Yuan but at Wuxia who was in the crowd. Tianji moved too fast. Just as the Dharma artifact was about to hit Wuxia, Chef turned his hand and slashed at it, hitting the Dharma artifact. Tianji, who was in midair, took the opportunity to conjure some sort of seal. In a flash, he disappeared into thin air. Everyone in the courtyard was stunned. They had not recovered from what happened just now. After a while Yuan asked, "Uncle Master Yi Qing, Shu Yi she turned into a demon." Yi Qing replied coldly. Everyone, Yuan and the elders could not react to the fact that Shu Yi had turned into a demon. But the truth was right in front of them. The demonic qi in the courtyard that day could not be faked. They just did not understand how a good person could turn into a demon just like that. And she even injured Elder Shu Yuan. No matter what, he was Shu Yi's father. Now not only were his meridians broken, Even his cultivation level dropped from late-stage nascent soul to early-stage nascent soul. He had not woken up yet. And supremacy Tianji, he was a soul formation supremacy in the sect. It was normal for him to protect his own disciple. But he did not even explain and just ran away with Shu Yi. They could not understand this. No matter how much he doted on his disciple, there was no need to betray the sect. Until Lone Moon accidentally revealed to everyone that the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi had escaped from the sect and did not come looking for them on purpose. And they even found a secret room on Danxia Mountain. There were indeed traces of fiendish cultivators inside. Everyone was enlightened. Looks like Tianji had turned into a demon long ago. Tianyi let out a long sigh. No wonder junior brother Yin would. He didn't continue, but everyone understood what he meant. Tianji had a cold personality. He did not have a good relationship with the people in the sect. Perfected Yin was one of the few people in the sect who was on good terms with Tianji. Occasionally he would go to Danxia Mountain. He must have found out something he shouldn't have. That was why he was killed by Tianji. No wonder they hadn't found the murderer after so long. No wonder Yin Jinren didn't even have a chance to ask for help and could only self-destruct his nascent soul. The more everyone thought about it, the more shocked they became. Was Tianji's doing as well? Did he have a plan in mind when he brought them to see Shu Yi? He thought of Shu Yuan, who had yet to wake up and had almost lost his nascent soul cultivation. If he could even lay his hands on his own father, what more them? If they had entered the house that day, thinking of this, everyone shuddered. Fortunately, Uncle Master I Ching had detected it in advance. Otherwise, they would have been completely wiped out. Lone Moon didn't say anything. He had to admit that although they were heading in the right direction, they were thinking too much. Tianji did not become a demon. Shu Yi was the only one who became a demon. He left because he was afraid that the fact that he imprisoned a fiendish cultivator and killed an elder of the sect would be exposed. That was why he ran away with them. Shening had sealed the demonic qi in Zhuosheng's body and the demonic seed in Shu Yi's body. In order to frame Zhuosheng, Shu Yi released it without hesitation. That caused the demonic seed to awaken and turn her into a demon. And the reason she had been unconscious for so many days was because the demonic qi in her body was slowly eating away at her original spirit qi. That meant that she was actually turning into a demon. Lone Moon was a little confused about this. When Shening said that the two seals were connected, they didn't think much of it. After all, Shu Yi had the system. The demonic seed was also sealed by the system. If it could seal it once, it could naturally seal it a second time. But who would have thought that the system would be so useless? It didn't even notice that the demonic seed had already escaped. It even made Shu Yi turn into a demon. One must know that the so-called demonic seed was different from demonic qi. The demonic seed was the embodiment of pure evil thoughts of the demon race. It also carried a part of the demon's soul that gave birth to the demonic seed. Once it entered the body, it would merge with the original soul until the other party completely turned into a demon. Back then, Celestial Emperor Chenggu wanted to get rid of the demonic seed in his body. He had to split a part of his soul and use the power of reincarnation to cleanse the demonic qi. Much less Shu Yi, a golden core cultivator. So the result of the system's momentary lapse was that Shu Yi completely turned into a demon. No wonder the parenting system said that this 001 was a system that was about to be eliminated. Sect Master, what do you think about this? All the elders looked at Yu Luan with lingering fear. This is a serious matter. The demonic qi is really too dangerous. Yu Luan's face turned green. Then he said in a low voice, although it's not good for Guiyi sect's matters to spread, we have to take precautions. We need to inform the various immortal sects as soon as possible and tell them the reason behind this. A fiendish cultivator with demonic qi and a soul formation cultivator who turned into a demon. This was a huge threat to the entire immortal sections. Everyone nodded in agreement. So in an instant, Shu Yi and Tianji turned from soul formation supremacies and genius disciples into evil demonic cultivators who betrayed the immortal sections. They were despised and hunted down by the entire immortal sections. Shu Yi originally wanted to frame Zhuosheng and make him a fiendish cultivator that everyone wanted to kill. But she didn't expect things to turn around. Zhuosheng was still a genius cultivator while she became the one that everyone wanted to kill. Lone Moon wondered how she would react when she completely regained her senses. It would be best if she added tens of points of resentment. Lone Moon pinched his fingers and calculated. If the enemy continued to send people over like this, perhaps this matter would be settled very soon. This was the easiest batch of invaders he had ever seen. Apart from teaching a slightly stupid sword cultivator, it was basically an easy win. Ever since Shu Yi and Tianji escaped from Guiyi sect, there was no more news of them. He had to admit that it was a little boring without the system's broadcast. So boring that Lone Moon couldn't help but play landlord with the parenting system. Zhou Shuming, on the other hand, sighed for a long while as if he couldn't accept it. Senior Sister Shu, who was giving him pointers just a moment ago, turned into a fiendish cultivator the next moment. Lone Moon solemnly said to him, 2 pieces. The most important thing to do as a person is to have some F***king sense, understand? Zhou Shuming was stunned for a long time and didn't understand. Brother Lone Moon's words are so profound. What could he do if he didn't understand at all? Lone Moon sighed. He could not be bothered to continue mocking him. He turned around and kicked him into the sword array. Then he increased the intensity of the training. If the training in the past was like a devil's training, then it was already hellish now. Shu Yi's target had always been Zhou Shuming. One day she would come knocking on his door. Now that she was already a demon, although she still had a mortal body, she was already equivalent to half a demon. Her battle strength had increased by several levels, while Zhou Shuming was still a weak golden core cultivator. If she really came knocking on his door, he would be a piece of cake. If he didn't make use of the time to cultivate now, when would he? Chapter 684. Lone Moon felt that as an invader with a mission at that, Shu Yi would not keep a low profile. There was no news now, perhaps it was because she had yet to fully control the demonic chi in her body, and it would come out on its own soon. However, before she could make a move, Tianyi had some unexpected gains a few years later. Tianyi was already at the late stage of soul formation, but he had been stuck at the last step, unable to advance. Lone Moon's casual advice the last time seemed to have given Tianyi a new direction. He directly threw himself into modifying elixirs. Perhaps he was really talented in refining elixirs. Not only did he really modify the demon-breaking pill, but he also started to study other heaven-grade elixir recipes. As time went by, he gained quite a bit. The entire Danxia mountain would face a few pill tribulations from time to time, or there would be a few cauldrons exploding. Yet Tianyi got more and more excited the more he practiced. His alchemy skills improved by leaps and bounds. He was a core cultivator. Apart from normal cultivation, core cultivators could also cultivate through the pill mist formed when refining elixirs. Tianyi refined elixirs so crazily, his cultivation naturally improved as well, and it was a huge improvement. Hence he was about to ascend. It was still early in the morning as Tianyi refined a cauldron of heaven-grade elixirs. The sky suddenly darkened. A huge bolt of lightning the likes of which no one in Guiyi sect had ever seen before suddenly descended from the sky. Then, it went around Nameless Peak above and landed on Danxia Peak below with a loud boom. In an instant, Tianyi's cave abode and a few other palaces beside it were smashed into pieces. Before anyone could react, the entire sect's protective mountain array was suddenly activated, but it still could not block the vast power of heaven and earth. Sect Master Yuluan hurriedly flew over from the main peak. Only then did he see that frighteningly thick bolt of lightning. And the black thunderclouds in the sky. Could this be? Yuluan did not dare to believe his eyes. It's the lightning tribulation of ascension. I Ching and Lone Moon, who just happened to be moving the spirit herbs over, looked at the sky together, then replied with certainty. Ascension. Yuluan was shocked, his expression slightly dazed. Could the person in the lightning be Uncle Master Tianyi? Yuluan was even more astonished, but his legs couldn't help but turn to jelly under the immense might of the heavens and earth. He felt as if he would be injured by the pressure in the air even if he took another look. Tianyi's lightning tribulation came too quickly. Moreover, it was early in the morning and the sky was not completely bright. That was why he did not notice it immediately. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to conjure a seal to set up an array so that the others would not be affected. After all, this was the Ascension lightning tribulation. After some thought, he nudged Chef beside him. You do it. I Ching paused. What? It's safer if you set it up. He added. After all, Chef was the boss of the one who struck the lightning bolt. Didn't he see that the heavenly Tao even avoided Nameless Peak? I Ching's face darkened, but he still turned around and flew out to set up the array. In a short while, a white array appeared around the Pill Peak. Even the protective mountain array above their heads opened up a big hole from the top to facilitate the heavenly thunder. Yuluan also reacted and hurriedly went down to arrange for the disciples of Danxia Mountain to evacuate while telling the disciples of the other peaks to stay away. This was the Ascension lightning tribulation. It was different from other things. Disciples with lower cultivation levels might be suppressed by the vast pressure of heaven and earth just by looking at it. That would affect their cultivation. What's more, it was just the first mental demon tribulation. The lightning tribulation later on would only get stronger and stronger. The two of them were very fast. By the time I Ching was done setting up the array, Yuluan had already evacuated most of the people. And Tianyi had also successfully passed the mental demon tribulation. The following lightning bolts struck one after another, illuminating Guiyi sect in a snow-white light. The entire Danxia mountain was struck by the lightning bolts at a speed visible to the naked eye. Inch by inch, it turned into ashes. In less than 20 bolts of lightning, it was already half a length shorter. What was amazing was that although the lightning bolts were fierce no matter how they struck, not a single bit of the lightning pressure leaked outside of Danxia mountain. It was as if they were targeted at a fixed point. The lightning bolts were extremely accurate and only aimed at Tianyi's head. Tianyi, who was sitting in the middle, was using all his strength to resist the lightning tribulation. Although he had a feeling these few days that the Ascension lightning tribulation was about to arrive. That was why he was refining pills like crazy to accumulate some spirit chi so that he could pass the lightning tribulation in one go. But he did not expect to realize that the Ascension lightning tribulation was not as simple as he thought it would be. The bolts of lightning seemed to want to split his entire body apart. The pain was comparable to a heart-wrenching, soul-crushing and soul-shattering pain. He could only try his best to absorb the violent spirit chi around him and use the gaps between the lightning bolts to heal his injuries. The entire process was undoubtedly a complete transformation. But he was indeed a complete transformation. The so-called Ascension lightning tribulation was originally a process for those who were attempting to ascend to immortality to shed their mortal bodies and grow immortal bones. And those who were going through the tribulation could only endure it. Tianyi was already covered in blood, but he still gritted his teeth and persevered. There were already faint signs of his immortal bones growing on his body. Until the last bolt of lightning struck, Tianyi used the last bit of spirit chi in his body to forcibly resist the lightning tribulation. The suffocating spiritual pressure in the surroundings became more and more solid. In an instant, it condensed into immortal chi and began to surge wildly into Tianyi's body, helping him to grow new immortal bones and at the same time healing his injuries. The bloody man who was on the verge of death just a moment ago was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the suppressive force on his body had completely changed. Tianyi heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he feel a sense of success. At the same time, a golden ray of light broke through the layers of thunder clouds and descended from the sky, directly hitting his body. The world that was originally incomparably familiar to him suddenly felt a sense of rejection. Even his body felt light and he could not help but fly towards the sky. Success. Uncle Master Tianyi is about to ascend. Yuluan was overjoyed and could not help but blurt out. He was both excited and emotional. It has been tens of thousands of years since anyone has successfully ascended here. I did not expect it to be Uncle Master Tianyi. This is great. Sensing that the danger had passed, the disciples all came out one after another. They looked at the descending heavenly light with excitement and surprise. Tianyi's figure was slowly flying towards the sky along with the light. He looked completely different. His entire body was filled with faint white immortal chi. Just as he was about to fly into the realm gate above, he seemed to have thought of something. His figure paused and he suddenly turned around, wanting to return. But because he was not very familiar with the use of immortal chi, he did not manage to restrain the power of the heavenly light. He was like a duck that could not swim. He waved his hand in the air a few times. Only then did he slowly descend halfway, but he still could not leave that heavenly light. He could only wave his hand and shout in this direction, "Brother Lone Moon, is Brother Lone Moon there?" For a moment, the gazes of the entire sect were all fixed on Lone Moon. Yet Tianyi's shout became louder and louder. He waved his hand at him forcefully. "Brother Lone Moon, hurry, come over here for a moment. I have something to tell you." "Lone Moon, damn it. Why do you have something to tell me? It's not like you don't have disciples. Underscore. Chapter 685. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He had no choice but to fly over under the loving gaze of the entire sect. "What's the matter? Brother Lone Moon." Tianyi glanced at him and suddenly reached out to take out the storage bag by his side. The storage ring on his hand, along with the defensive Dharma artifact hairpin on his head, everything that could be used on him was taken off. Then, She shoved everything into his hands and said with a serious look on her face, I thought that these might be useless once we reach the upper realm, so I gave them all to you. Brother Lone Moon, your aptitude far exceeds mine. You will definitely ascend successfully. Old friend, I will wait for your good news up there. Lone Moon. What's with this feeling of being taken care of? But spirit stones that were delivered to his doorstep, it would be a waste not to take them. Carat Omega Carat, thank you Brother Tianyi. We're all brothers, there's no need to be so polite. He waved his hand and said sincerely, I can ascend thanks to your advice that day. These things are nothing. He wanted to say more, but the pull from the realm gate was getting stronger. He could only say hurriedly, I have to go, take care Brother Lone Moon. With that said, he flew up. Lone Moon looked at the pile of things in his hand, his expression darkened. He sighed and took out a white jade token and threw it over. Take this. Tianyi caught it reflexively. Upon closer inspection, it was just an ordinary jade token. It was neither a Dharma artifact nor a talisman. There were 2 words engraved on both sides. On one side was Bo Si and on the other side was invincible. This is. Tianyi was stunned. You'll know when you get up. Lone Moon had no intention of explaining and just waved his hand. In the next moment, Tianyi was already pulled up by the heavenly light and disappeared in the golden light in the sky. In the next moment, the golden light dispersed and turned into a spirit rain that fell down. All the disciples looked delighted and sat down one by one. They began to absorb this rare rich spirit chi and realized the remaining trace of heavenly Tao in the sky. Even the nascent soul elders sat down. One must know that in tens of thousands of years, there had not been a cultivator who ascended. This was a rare opportunity. Lone Moon also flew back and met I Ching's probing gaze. What are you looking at? Lone Moon glared at him. Chef narrowed his eyes. You just gave him a disciple token of invincible sect? So what if I am? Lone Moon casually stuffed the things in his hands back into his storage bag. She had at least paid the school fees. Oh. Chef narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Didn't they say that the invincible sect was too difficult to raise and that they would no longer accept people? Oh, your sister. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Get rid of those disgusting wavy lines. Don't learn blindly from Shining. Yu Hong said that the sect's elixir business is getting bigger and boss. Boss cannot just rely on Boss Lan and Spirit Chi. Of. What's more, Boss Lan still has to refine weapons, create talismans, water Radish, and now that Radish's unlucky son is here, he also has to occasionally guide the disciples in their cultivation. Lone Moon counted off the items. It was hard to do business these days, okay? What else? He rolled his eyes. Do you want to go back and help practice? Chef stiffened and changed the topic seriously. Oh yes, I remember that I cooked less porridge for breakfast. Master must not be full. Father Nyo, I'll go back first. Master was not here, he could not afford to offend him. Small fry. I Ching deeply felt that he was still suitable to be the chef. He turned around and wanted to fly back to Nameless Peak. Suddenly, a loud rumble came from the foot of the mountain. The entire Guiyi sect shook. The great protective array that was still enveloping the sky suddenly darkened. The 8 spiritual swords that were originally surrounding the sect, with a few cracking sounds, broke into pieces. Someone destroyed the formation core. I Ching's face darkened. He turned to look at the mountain gate on the right. Someone must have snuck in when Tianyi was going through the tribulation. Yuan also woke up from his meditation. Uncle Master I Ching, this. Just as he was about to ask, he suddenly heard a commotion coming from the foot of the mountain. He could faintly feel a large amount of evil chi surging into Guiyi sect. A disciple hurriedly flew up. Sect Master. The disciple reported anxiously. Reporting to Sect Master, a large number of devil cultivators suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain. They are about to break through the mountain gate and barge in. Now. Yuan's expression changed as he instantly understood what was going on. Uncle Master Tianyi had just ascended. Although this was a good thing, Guiyi sect had one less soul formation cultivator. In addition, Tianji had defected a few years ago. Guiyi sect only had one soul formation cultivator left. These fiendish cultivators definitely wanted to take down Guiyi sect before they recovered. Can you tell where these fiendish cultivators came from? He asked in a low voice. Since they dared to attack Guiyi sect, there must be quite a number of them. They must be from the fiendish sect. It's the heavenly demon sect, the disciple answered with certainty. Heavenly demonic sect. Yuan was stunned. We have no enmity with them, why would they attack our sect? The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. While thinking, he anxiously arranged, "Go, inform the 3 peak masters of the 3 upper peaks and all the nascent soul-perfected ones to follow me to meet the enemy. The other peak lords were guarding the sect to prevent any accidents. Tell them to focus on the eye of the great mountain guarding formation." Yes. The disciple hurriedly turned and went to inform them. Yulwan then looked at I Ching and said, "Uncle Master, let's go." I Ching understood what he meant. He immediately turned and flew in the direction of the mountain gate. Yulwan's heart calmed down and he immediately followed. Lone Moon was bored, so he followed as well. The few of them had yet to reach the mountain gate when they saw a large patch of evil chi occupying the forest in front of the mountain gate. The other side seemed to have already made a move. The disciples at the mountain gate were heavily injured. They were barely hanging on by relying on the array formation at the gate. That array formation was left behind by the founding patriarch of Guiyi sect. It was very difficult for cultivators below the soul formation stage to break through it. Before Yulwan could heave a sigh of relief, he heard a loud boom. He saw the array stone at the mountain gate shatter. Cracks appeared on the array formation at the gate. Then, a familiar suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator swept over. The suppressive force is Tianji. Yulwan was stunned. His face was full of disbelief. As if recalling something, his face turned pale. Heavenly demonic sect. So it's him? What do you mean, sect master? Loneman's expression darkened. Actually, he and Chef already knew that the person leading the group was Tianji. But looking at Yulwan's expression, he seemed to know something. Yulwan's expression became even uglier. His brows seemed to be knitted together. Then he explained, "I heard that a while ago the sect master of Heavenly Demonic Sect was suddenly killed by someone. Since then, Heavenly Demonic Sect has changed masters. What's more, that new sect master led Heavenly Demonic Sect to conquer several fiendish cultivation sections. There are signs of them unifying the demonic sections. I just didn't expect that person to actually be Tianji." He thought that Guiyi sect had never mistreated this soul formation supremacy. But he didn't expect that not only would he join the demonic sects and betray them, but after unifying the demonic sects, the first thing he did was to attack Guiyi sect. This made Yulwan feel somewhat bitterly disappointed. The array formation at the mountain gate had already been completely broken. The person who appeared at the gate was indeed Tianji. Chapter 686. Tianji. Guiyi sect has treated you well. Why did you gather fiendish cultivators to attack us? Yulwan could not help but ask with a pained expression. He really wanted to know. Tianji snorted. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with his actions. Instead, he said with hatred, "Yulwan, now that things have come to this, why do you have to continue acting in front of me? Do you really think I don't know that you've been unhappy with me for a long time? Every day you plan to get rid of me. Didn't you invite this sword cultivator into the sect to force me to leave?" With that said, he glared at I Ching. "What did you say?" Yulwan's expression was one of disbelief. He had never thought that Tianji would think this way. Tianji continued to speak with conviction. "You forced me to do all this. I'm here today to seek justice. Guiyi sect deserves to suffer such a fate." Yulwan was so angry that he could not speak. He did not think that Tianji would twist the truth like this. Lone Moon frowned. Indeed, a person whose thoughts were already crooked. Even if he did something like betraying his master and destroying his ancestors, he had many reasons to be punished. Even if, as he said, there were people in the sect who were unhappy with him, no one forced him to betray and become a fiend. Why bother with all this nonsense? Chef, who was at the side, calculated the time it took to cook. With a turn of his hand, he summoned his spirit sword. His expression darkened. "Let's do it." They were in a rush to cook. If they could do it, what was the point of babbling? Tianji frowned. A hint of fear flashed across his face. But he did not face I Ching alone. Instead, he waved his hand behind him and instructed, "Go. Take down Guiyi sect." "Yes, sect master." The eyes of the fiendish cultivators beside him lit up. They responded in unison. As if they had been waiting for a long time, they immediately swarmed forward. The dermic artifacts in their hands attacked together. They covered the sky. Some of the fiendish cultivators even flew up into the sky. They seemed to want to be the first to enter the sect and snatch the credit. The evil aura belonging to the fiendish cultivators permeated the entire Guiyi sect. Even the surrounding spirit chi retreated. At a glance, There were actually tens of thousands of fiendish cultivators. There were quite a number of nascent soul cultivators. They looked no less than the perfected ones in the sect. Yulwan's heart tightened. He panicked. He hurriedly summoned his dermic artifacts and appeared in front of the heavily injured disciples. He blocked them and shouted, "We cannot let the fiendish cultivators enter the sect. All disciples follow me and form an array." As he spoke, he turned to look at Lone Moon. Perhaps he remembered Yi who had just ascended. "Little friend Lone Moon Tian." "Tianji," he said. "No need." Lone Moon squeezed the fan in his hand and replied with a carefree expression. "Ha." Yulwan paused and was about to persuade him. "You Tian Shan you Tian you. Tian you. GG, a you Tian you I." Yulwan was only brushed by the sword chi. His legs gave way. He barely managed to stabilize himself before he fell to his knees. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators who were facing this sword chi. The people who were about to fly toward Guiyi sect fell to the ground like dumplings. They all fell to the ground like dumplings. They could not move, as if they were under some kind of heavy pressure. Because they were in such a rush, some of them fell to the ground, screaming. Even Tianji lost his balance. He coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at I Ching in disbelief. This is impossible. They were both late-stage soul formation cultivators. Why did I Ching have such a terrifying sword chi? He could not even resist. I Ching could not be bothered with him. He turned the sword in his hand. Instantly, a sky full of spirit swords appeared. With a few swooshes they fell in front of the mountain gate like rain. Every time a sword fell, a gust of wind blew. It was as if thousands of invisible swords were attacking the fiendish cultivators on the ground. For a moment, screams could be heard. Those with high cultivation were able to withstand the sword chi that filled the sky and dodge some. Those with low cultivation were not so lucky and were directly swept away by the sword chi, losing all signs of life. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the fiendish cultivators were gone. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators, even Yulwan could not react. He stared at the fiendish cultivators lying on the ground. All the mountain masters brought their disciples and rushed over to help. "Sect master, the fiendish cultivators are attacking." Before they could finish speaking, they saw the tragic scene in front of the mountain gate. Everyone, the battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had begun. The battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had ended. This was definitely the fastest battle they had ever seen. On the other side, I Ching was already walking towards Tianji. With every step he took, the surrounding sword chi became heavier. There were more dumplings on the ground. Even the fiendish cultivators who were far away from the mountain gate took the opportunity to escape. People of the fiendish sect treasured their lives the most. They were originally a group of people. Naturally, they did not care about morality. In addition, the heavenly demon sect had only just unified the fiendish sect. There were not many who were truly loyal to Tianji. Lone Moon walked towards Tianji. He raised his hand and sent a sword chi towards his dantian. Instantly, it dispersed all the spirit chi in his body and sealed all his meridians. Then he picked Tianji up and dragged him back like a sack. Then he threw him to Sect Master Yulwan. "Do whatever you want with him." "Trouble." Yulwan was stunned. Then he hurriedly caught Tianji. Looking at the supremacy who was supposed to be respected by everyone in the sect, he felt complicated. Thinking of what Tianji said earlier, his expression darkened. Yet Tianji did not look the least bit remorseful. As if thinking of something, he laughed out loud. "Ah. Do you really think that with a soul formation sword cultivator Guiyi sect would have nothing to worry about?" "What do you mean?" Yulwan was shocked. He understood what Tianji was implying. Only a bunch of idiots like you would treat a sword cultivator of unknown origins like him. He laughed louder and louder. "Do you really believe that he will always side with Guiyi sect?" "Tianji." Before Yulwan could speak, the nascent soul elder beside him could not help but scold him. "You were the one who betrayed the sect with impure intentions. Don't think that others will be as filthy as you." "Umph." Tianji snorted. He looked at I Ching with a venomous gaze. "If you did not lead the wolf into the house to suppress me, I would not have become like this. You all reap what you sow, so does he." Everyone was even angrier. They were angry at his stubbornness. Yulwan, however, frowned and stepped forward. "Apart from attacking the sect, what else did you do?" Tianji suddenly laughed sinisterly. He said smugly, "I dared to come here because I was fully prepared. Of course you've won, haven't you?" "No. This is just the beginning." Lonman's expression darkened. He scanned the surroundings and then reacted. Shui is not here. Everyone was shocked. They did not notice earlier. Now that they thought about it, Tianji treated that disciple so well, he would not have not brought her with him. Unless he had other motives. Have you finally realized? Tianji laughed even more happily. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. None of you can escape. All of you must die. Lonman's heart sank. Zhushuming. He exchanged a look with Yi Qing. Both of them flashed at the same time and flew towards Nameless Peak. Chapter 687. Yi Qing and Lone Moon flew very fast. They arrived at Nameless Peak in the blink of an eye. Before he landed on the ground, he heard a loud bang and the whole floating peak shook for a while. A fine white light rose up, faintly bringing with it some scattered sword chi that had exploded. It's a sword array. Lone Moon was shocked. Only then did he remember that when they came out, 2 bucks was in the sword array. The two of them took a closer look. Indeed, the 10-level sword array that Lone Moon had set up back then had already been destroyed by someone. The powerful impact had caused more than half of the entire floating peak to collapse, and the sword chi within the array was flowing everywhere. And at the bottom of the peak, clouds of black demonic chi faintly appeared. In the middle was a figure covered in blood, holding on with his sword. It looked like the surrounding demonic chi was going to swallow him in the next moment. It was 2 bucks. Lone Moon was shocked. He could not care less about hiding his cultivation. The fan in his hand turned into a sword. With a wave of his hand, he split the demonic chi around him, turned into spirit chi to entangle the person below, and directly pulled him out of the clouds of demonic chi. Yi Qing's movements were also very fast. Almost at the same time Lone Moon made his move, he activated the true phoenix fire. Along with his sword chi, it burned towards the demonic chi below. The demonic chi was instantly forced back by the flames, shrinking back, slowly revealing Shu Yi's figure behind. Hey, are you still alive? Lone Moon patted 2 bucks who was already covered in blood, and directly sent a bit of immortal chi over, activating Scoop's scale in his body. In a short while, the immortal chi automatically began to circulate throughout his body. 2 bucks' injuries also began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eyes then slowly focused, looking at the person in front of him. Brother. Lone Moon? Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily they arrived in time. Uncle Master Yi Qing. Yuan and the rest of the elders rushed over as well. Taking a look at the tragic scene, they lifted their heads to look at Shu Yi and were instantly stunned, not daring to recognize him. So, Shu Yi. She was no longer as sensible and well-behaved as she used to be. Perhaps it was because of the influence of the devil chi, but her face was covered with hideous devil scars. From time to time, devil chi would seep out from her body. She no longer looked like a cultivator, but had completely turned into a half-devil, looking extremely terrifying. Even if one were to look at it from afar, they would feel a chill crawling into their hearts. You again. Shu Yi raised her head and glared at Yi Qing. She seemed to be angry that she did not manage to kill Zhushuming in one go, but when she thought of the deviant fire just now, she started to feel wary. Ding. Warning, hunt failed. Original owner's resentment has reached 95. The mission will fail if it reaches 100. The familiar system announcement sounded again. Shut up. I know. Shu Yi was flustered and exasperated. If not for Zhushuming hiding in that sword array, I wouldn't have wasted so much time. He would have died long ago. What should I do now, host? The 001 system started to panic. Why don't we give up on the mission? The original owner's resentment level is too high. Killing Zhushuming would not lower it. No. Shu Yi rejected it without hesitation. Let's not care about the mission first. I've wasted so many years here. I won't rest until I kill him. But host, say no more. Although I can't do anything about the original owner's resentment level, it's not impossible to kill him. Shu Yi's expression darkened. She suppressed the anger in her heart and calmed down. Yuan stepped forward and said, Shu Yi, you betrayed your sect and were unfilial. You didn't even let your own father off. You even colluded with fiendish cultivators to attack my Guiyi sect. It's really infuriating. Now that Tianji has been taken down by Uncle Master Yi Qing, you're alone and without help. Hurry up and surrender. You want to capture me? Shu Yi laughed coldly. She did not look the least bit flustered. Demonic chi surged around her. That depends on whether you have the ability. With that said, she suddenly struck the ground with her palm. Demonic chi surged out of her body and into the ground. In an instant, the entire nameless peak shook again. The ground cracked and black demonic chi flowed through the cracks towards the group. "Quick, fly on your swords," Lone Moon reminded them. He picked up 2 Wuxia and flew up. These were mortals after all. They could not come into direct contact with the demonic chi. The elders hesitated and then understood. One by one, they summoned their Dharma artifacts and were about to fly up. Suddenly, black chi flashed under their feet. A black array suddenly appeared. They felt the spirit chi in their bodies disappear. It was as if they had been sucked dry. They did not fly up. Instead, they fell to the ground. It was obvious that Shu Yi had set up a binding array on the ground in advance. It looked like everyone's spirit chi was going to be sucked dry by the array. Even their cultivation levels were starting to become unstable. Yi Qing frowned. He turned the sword in his hand and a huge wave of sword chi flew towards the ground. It landed on the array with a loud rumble. In an instant, the array formed by the demonic chi was broken. Everyone felt their bodies relax. "Idiot." On the other side, Shu Yi suddenly sneered. She didn't care whether Yi Qing had broken her array or not. She took the opportunity to turn around and fly toward the peak of the mountain. Everyone then realized that she was only trying to divert their attention. They immediately chased after her. She did not take the opportunity to escape from Guiyi sect. Instead, she flew all the way to the peak and rushed into the courtyard. She grabbed a certain someone by the table and strangled his neck. She warned sternly, "Don't come over. Otherwise I'll kill her." Zui Shuming panicked. He did not even care about his injuries. He said angrily and anxiously, "What are you trying to do? Let go of Miss Shen." "Let go?" Shu Yi snorted. "Do you think I'm stupid? Would I let go of such a bargaining chip so easily?" "Shu Yi." Zui Shuming took 2 steps forward and said anxiously, "I don't know why you suddenly want to kill me. But Miss Shen is just an ordinary person. Our feud has nothing to do with her." "Shui," Yuan said in a low voice. "Don't make the same mistake again. Why implicate an innocent person?" "Innocent person?" Shu Yi's expression darkened. She laughed coldly. "If she's just an ordinary person, you won't be so nervous. Don't think I don't know who she is. She's that sword cultivator's master. You want to save her?" "Sure." She narrowed her eyes and looked at Zui Shuming maliciously. "If you guys kill her now, I might consider it." Everyone looked at each other and turned to look at Zui Shuming. Zui Shuming was also stunned. Shu Yi smiled even more smugly. She looked at Chef and said, "Supremacy Yi Qing, you have to think this through. You have the deviant fire and are not afraid of demonic chi. She might not be. As long as you help me kill Zui Shuming and destroy Guiyi sect, I promise I won't touch a hair on your master." Yi Qing, Lone Moon, MDZ. Xin Ying, who was still being strangled, looked at the tense atmosphere around her. She slowly continued to take a bite of her fruit. Speaking of which, should she continue to cooperate? After all, this person looked very happy. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.